Chapter 668. In the end, Tiani still did not give the slot to Zhuosheng, not because he was unwilling, but because the floating peak that Lone Moon and the rest lived on, in the eyes of the disciples, was already an independent peak of Guiyi sect. So I Ching, who was tacitly acknowledged as the peak master, could also send one person to the finals. Zhuosheng undoubtedly entered the finals in the name of Nameless Peak. That's right, because their floating peak had not been given a name for a long time. Everyone tacitly called it Nameless Peak. But there was only one slot, and other than Lone Moon having a little presence here with Tianyi, in the eyes of others, he was at most Zhuosheng's follower. In this way, Tianyi naturally thought that he was left behind. Things proved that some people were tricked into forming revolutionary friendships. In order to take care of Lone Moon's good friend's feelings, Supremacy Tun eagerly transferred his own peak slot to Lone Moon and reported his name. So, Lone Moon was inexplicably sent to the finals, and it was already announced, it could not be changed. Lone Moon, son of AB****, the sect competition was set to be 3 days later. Yulwan even specially came up to inform Chef about this, asking him not to be present. His words revealed that he wanted Chef to decide on the spot to accept a few more disciples into the mountain. Although basically no one in Guiyi sect chose to cultivate the sword, they could still recruit people. In these few years, the outer sect had actually recruited many disciples to learn the sword. After all, a soul formation sword cultivator was here. There was no fear that no one would come, especially after the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi's death. Guiyi sect's reputation had already spread. Even Taiyin sect had sent people to inquire about I Ching several times. The current Guiyi sect was already different from the sect that only sold elixirs in the past. In short, they had the conditions to nurture sword cultivators. Even if they didn't, they had to create the conditions to nurture them. Anyway, their pill cultivators were rich, they could afford it. Lone Moon was well aware of I Ching's thoughts. He also guessed that such a day would come, so he set up the sword array in advance, and even threw 2 bucks in. Anyway, no matter how many disciples were recruited into the peak, the task of teaching people would still fall on his head. Chef could be in charge of food, but he definitely could not be counted on to teach disciples. As for Shening, taking advantage of the preliminary competition, Lone Moon also gave 2 bucks extra training, the kind that trained him to death. Finally, on the day before the finals, 2 bucks passed the first level of the sword array. Only then was he reassured to let him participate in the competition. There were many disciples in Guiyi sect, so the sect competition actually lasted for an entire month. It was divided into alchemy and sorcery. It was easy to determine the winner of the competition in spells, but it was not so easy to determine the winner of the competition in pill refinement. Foundation establishment and chi refinement cultivators were still fine. They did not know how to refine pills, and generally, a furnace of pills would not take more than 3 days. However, it was different for golden core cultivators and above. Golden core cultivators could already concoct pills of the 3rd grade and above. The training time was usually more than 10 days. That was why Guiyi sect's competition was not like other sects, where the winner could be decided in 3 to 4 days. 20 days later, the finalists were finally decided. Zhuosheng and Lone Moon were participating in the sorcery competition. When they arrived at the competition venue, they found out that there were more than 50 people who had made it to the finals. Most of them were foundation establishment cultivators. There were even a few golden core cultivators. Lone Moon frowned. He then realized that in this so-called sorcery competition, golden core and foundation establishment cultivators were mixed together. Of course, this was unfair to the foundation establishment cultivators. But Guiyi sect was a sect that mainly focused on pill refinement. There were too few disciples who did not cultivate pill refinement. There was no need to separate them. Besides, the main focus of the competition was pill refinement. He looked carefully at the crowd. Strangely, he found that the invader Shu Yi was here too. His gaze swept over Zhuosheng from time to time, as if he was preparing to do something. But a certain silly guy did not seem to notice anything. From the moment he entered the competition venue, he had been hugging his sword, looking nervous and unsure. He was not afraid of losing. He was mainly afraid of embarrassing supremacy I Ching and Lady Shen. After all, he was here representing Nameless Peak. That was why since 3 days ago, he had been calculating his sword moves in his mind. He was afraid that he would lose too badly. Even when he got on the stage and swept the cultivator off the stage with one sword move, he still had not recovered from his nervousness. That sword move just now, was it made by him? But didn't the other party fall a little too quickly? This was different from what he had imagined. Back when he was practicing with Brother Lone Moon, he was the one who was swept off the stage. Two Bucks Zwa, who had been beaten up and had not been able to turn the tables, was shocked. Only then did he react. So the sword technique that Brother Lone Moon taught him was actually so powerful? And the following competition made him even more unable to believe his own eyes. The sword moves that Lone Moon had repeatedly looked down on in the past actually won all the way. Those foundation establishment disciples of the same sect would not last more than 10 moves against him. They would all be defeated by his sword. It was so smooth that it was as if everyone was going easy on him. Zwa Shuming was completely stunned. He had never thought that the cultivation that he had always looked down on was actually so powerful. Oh, greater than overcultivate. However, since he knew that he was going to participate in the competition, his heart that had been hanging in the balance suddenly fell to the ground. His confidence was like a balloon that was being inflated. It had never been so strong before. Even when he met an opponent in the Golden Core stage, he could calm down and think of sword moves. Then, he could withstand the other party's suppressive aura and attack move by move. And he actually won in the end. There was an uproar in the crowd. This was a cross-level challenge, and he actually won. He was indeed an unkillable sword cultivator. For a moment, all the disciples could not help but look at a certain person on the stage. Even his disciple was so powerful. Then how powerful would a soul formation supremacy be? Even Yulwan could not help but turn to look at I Ching. He exclaimed, "He is indeed from Nameless Peak. He can actually cross-level challenges. Congratulations, Uncle Master. You have indeed taught an impressive disciple." I Ching, who was peeling melon seeds. Shening, who was eating melon seeds. Meow meow meow. Nameless Peak, Zwa Shuming wins. Zwa Shuming was also dumbfounded. He had thought that he would definitely lose, but he actually won. He did not even use his full strength. Instantly, he felt as if he was dreaming. He looked down at the sword in his hand. For the first time in his life, he felt what a true sword cultivator was. For a moment, a wild joy surged in his heart. If this was his true strength, then perhaps he could really win in the end. He tightened his grip on the sword in his hand. His eyes were filled with confidence and anticipation. He could win. He could really win. Until Lone Moon walked up to the stage. Baji. He faintly felt that something in the bottom of his heart had fallen to the ground and shattered into pieces. His whole person was like a punctured ball. With a crackling sound, his confidence was completely gone. Zwa Shuming. Could he admit defeat? Don't bully him like this. Was there even a need to compete? Chapter 669. The spells competition had already reached the end. Other than Lone Moon and Zwa Shuming, Shu Yi and the other 2 personal disciples from the other 2 peaks had all entered the top 5. Sect Master Yulwan glanced at the last 5. Perhaps recognizing Lone Moon, he could not help but turn back in praise. Sword cultivators indeed. There are only 2 disciples from Nameless Peak, but they actually both entered the top 5. Especially this Zwa Shuming. In just a few years, he has already cultivated sword chi. I think there is no suspense for this year's champion. Uncle Master I Ching is indeed good at teaching. He swept a glance at the 2 dueling people in the arena, especially at a certain person, whose sword was about to fall. His mouth twitched, but before he could reply, Tian Yi's face darkened, and he immediately retorted. "You're right. Isn't Sect Master's words too early?" He snorted coldly and said with some indignation. "Not to mention others. I see that Brother Lone Moon's sword skills are sharp and his spirit chi is restrained. He could sweep his opponent off the stage in less than 10 moves in the previous competition. One look and I can tell that he has a deep understanding of sword skills. I think he should be the champion this year." Yulwan was taken aback. What Brother Lone Moon? When did Uncle Master Tian acknowledge a brother? Uncle Master I Ching had a mortal master. They had a grandmaster out of nowhere. Since when did the disciples of the peak become brothers with Uncle Master Tian? Speaking of which, was taking advantage of seniority a tradition of nameless peak? My brother Lone Moon is loyal. Although he is a sword cultivator, he is involved in pills, talismans, arrays and weapons, especially his understanding of array formations. Tiani continued to praise without blinking. Sect Master is not sure, don't make wild guesses. I think that Zhuo One might not be his match. No matter what, he had to support his brother. Yulwan broke out in cold sweat. He had originally wanted to suck up to Supremacy I Ching and get him to take in more disciples. He did not expect Uncle Master Tian to join in. Yet he could not rebut, he could only smile awkwardly and reply. Uncle Master Tian Yi's words are not without reason. Of course. Only then was Tian Yi satisfied. He continued to support Lone Moon with pride. This brother of mine, be it in terms of character, comprehension or cultivation, they are all rare. Other than him there is no other. I admit defeat. Before he could finish speaking he suddenly heard Lone Moon, who had just entered the arena, shout, Tiani! Yulwan! The master and disciple duo. 2 pieces, who thought they were going to get beaten up. Huh? What was going on? Tiani felt a slight pain on his face. Sect Master Yulwan, who was at the side, gave him a speechless expression. Wasn't he supposed to be the leader? Tian Yi's face turned pale, and he was completely stunned. This was not an immortal spell. His brother Lone Moon was definitely not the kind of person who would give up without a fight. There must be some special reason. That's right, that's definitely it. Could it be that he suffered some sort of injury while preparing for the competition? The more he thought about it, the more he felt it was possible. The more he thought about it, the more worried he became. He suddenly stood up. No, I have to go take a look. In any case, he had plenty of medicinal pills. With that said, he did not care about Yulwan anymore, and disappeared from the spectator stand in a flash. The master and disciple duo. Should they tell him that Father Nyo was just sick of beating up 2 pieces Zhua, and was too lazy to do it? Zhua Shuming had already been announced as the winner. Lone Moon did not stay either. He turned and walked down the stage, his gaze sweeping across Shu Yi. It was not because he did not want to beat up 2 pieces Zhua, but because this was already the semi-finals. If he won against Zhua Shuming, he might be the one facing Shu Yi in the end. He was a manager, and had been an assistant in this plane before. No matter what, he would have some nomological powers. Shu Yi was an invader and had a system on her. If they really fought, there might be a risk of being exposed. So he might as well admit defeat here. Besides, 2 pieces Zhuo was born to be the nemesis of this person. Although he was only at the foundation establishment stage, and his cultivation was a whole realm lower than the other party, he might not win. But in terms of angering Shu Yi to death, he was still very professional. At the same time, he also wanted to see, with the help of the system, how much Shu Yi's cultivation had improved during this period of seclusion. Lone Moon's guess was right. Zhua Shuming and Shu Yi each won against the other 2 disciples. The 2 of them entered the final battle. Shu Yi seemed to be very satisfied with such an outcome. The way she looked at Zhua Shuming was determined to win. There was even a faint murderous aura around her, as if she could not wait to rush over and beat the other party up. Uncle Master. Shu. Yet Zhua Shuming still did not feel anything. He even cupped his fists and bowed politely. Smiling naively he said, Long time no see. I didn't think that I would have the chance to fight with Uncle Master Shu. Alright, I wonder. Shut up. Shu Yi directly interrupted him, as if she had gained experience from being angered. Without waiting for him to finish, she directly summoned her Dharma artifact and attacked him without saying a word. Using the advantage of being 1 realm higher, she even released the suppressive force of a golden core cultivator and used all her strength to suppress the other party's movements. Zhua Shuming was stunned. His movements paused for a moment. Immediately, he also mobilized the sword chi around him to resist the suppressive force of the other party. Changing from his naive look just now, he directly summoned several spirit swords and faced it without dodging. Just as the 2 of them were about to fight, the entire Guei sect suddenly shook violently. A loud boom sounded, as if there was the sound of something exploding. The protective mountain array was suddenly activated. 8 huge spirit swords instantly appeared around Guei sect. A layer of transparent array directly enveloped the entire Guei sect. What's going on? All the disciples were shocked. One by one, they looked around in confusion. Even Zhou Shuming and Xu Yi, who were competing in the middle, had no choice but to stop. Sect Master Yu Luan's expression changed. He stood up abruptly and turned to look at the right side of the main peak. The sound is coming from Danshan Peak. Danshan Peak. Lord Shu Yuan's expression darkened. He directly turned to fly on his sword and flew towards that direction. The competition will stop first, Yu Luan instructed. With that, he also turned and flew towards Danshan Peak. The other nascent soul elders were also not in the mood to care about the competition. They all followed to see the situation. I Ching released his divine perception to check. Frowning, he turned to look at the person beside him. Master. Shining nodded. So the two of them also chased in the direction of the crowd. Danshan Peak was not far from the main peak. Originally, they would be able to see it once they left the main peak. However, the crowd did not see Danshan Peak from their original position. There was a faint burnt smell in the air. Looking down, they realized that Danshan Peak had already sunk down. The floating peak that was originally similar to the other peaks seemed to have been exploded from the middle. Only the top section was left, and the lower half of the peak had already completely collapsed. It turned into gravel and fell down. That was why the protective mountain array was triggered. It floated below the peaks. All the elders' expressions darkened. One by one, they flew down towards the remaining half of Danshan Peak. Before they could land, a turbulent wave of spirit chi suddenly rushed toward them. This is... Yu Luan's expression turned pale. Someone self-destructed their nascent soul. Chapter 670. At the side, Shu Yuan suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed. Junior brother Yin. With that said, he headed directly towards the back of the remaining half of the floating peak. Everyone looked at each other, and immediately followed him. Turning around the floating peak, they saw that the whole back of the mountain was in chaos. The spirit fields that were originally planted with spirit herbs were now a thick black. Half of the broken part of the floating peak was left with a huge pit. The aura of a nascent soul cultivator and traces of cold black chi were faintly lingering around. I Ching frowned. This black chi was... It really is junior brother Yin. A trace of sorrow flashed across Shu Yuan's face, instantly filled with anger. Who on earth dared to attack our sect's nascent soul elder, and even forced him to self-destruct his nascent soul? Yu Luan's expression also changed. He hurriedly turned to look at a disciple behind him and said, Go, inform the disciples guarding the exit of each peak. Seal the mountain gates and guard them strictly. No one is allowed to enter or leave. Yes. The disciple immediately turned and went to pass the order. Yu Luan's heart was also full of anger. He did not expect that the sect would lose a nascent soul elder just like that. And on such an important day like the sect competition, he attacked silently and even self-destructed his nascent soul in such a tragic way. The key was that none of them noticed. This proved that Elder Yin might not even have a chance to call for help. He carefully looked around the charred back of the mountain, his eyes fixed on the black chi that had not yet dissipated. This is demonic chi. Could it be that a fiendish cultivator sneaked in? His eyes darkened. Just as he was about to fly down to check, I Ching suddenly reached out and pulled him back. Wait, Uncle Master I Ching. It's not demonic chi. I Ching glanced at the black chi and said in a low voice, It's demonic chi. What? Not only Yu Luan, even the elders were shocked, their faces full of disbelief. Demonic chi. Uncle Master, you mean this black chi is the demonic chi of the fiend race? I Ching said with certainty. Everyone's faces paled. When they looked carefully at the area surrounded by the black chi, they found that they could faintly see the withered and corroded spirit plants in the scorched area in the back of the mountain. It was clear that it was not caused by Elder Yin's nascent soul explosion, but by the influence of the black chi. To be able to make plants wither in an instant and exterminate all living beings. This really is the legendary devil chi. Someone cried out in surprise. Everyone's expressions turned even uglier. Even the few elders who were standing closer to the front subconsciously took a step back. This was demonic energy. In ancient legends, only the god race could rival the aura of the devil race. Could it be that the one who killed junior brother Ian is a Mo clan? Yuan froze. That was a demon, not a fiendish cultivator. Not to mention their Gui sect. Even if all the immortal sects joined forces, they might not be a match for it. No. I Ching's eyes darkened, and he said with certainty, if the demons appeared, they would not have left behind such little demonic chi. Yuan's heart relaxed and he nodded. He looked down, and his expression became more serious. Then these demonic chi, what should we do? If it was just ordinary demonic chi, they would not be afraid. But demonic chi, they might not even be able to get close to it. As if sensing their concerns, I Ching directly took a step forward. With a wave of his hand, a red wall of fire swept towards the black chi on the ground. Almost in the blink of an eye, the demonic chi that was originally left on the ground disappeared completely. Even the originally scorched ground regained some of its original color. Yuan was then completely relieved. He turned and gave a few instructions to the elders, and then split up to look for clues about the enemy. Unfortunately, no matter how the few of them turned this destroyed floating peak upside down, they did not find any clues. Everyone could only fly back to the main hall with solemn expressions. Yuan brought out the broken life token of Elder Ian, who self-destructed his nascent soul. He wanted to use the remnant aura on the life token to investigate the situation before his death, but the spell also failed. He could not see who did it at all. Fortunately, because of the competition, most of the disciples on the peak were gathered on the main peak. Danshan Peak was destroyed, other than Elder Ian who self-destructed his nascent soul, and a few disciples who guarded the peak were seriously injured. There were no other casualties. But at that time, the protective mountain array was activated in time. The other party could not escape at all, which meant that it was very likely that the person was still hiding in the sect. Yuan could only completely stop the sect competition, then seal the mountain, and start a comprehensive investigation in the sect. Demonic chi? Why is there still more? Lone Moon, who returned and heard the situation, was stunned. He turned to look at Chef. Could it be that other than that earth demon, who fell from the river of forgetfulness, there are other demons in this small world? Probably not. Chef shook his head. If there really is a demon descending to the lower realm, he would definitely be suppressed by the heavenly Tao. He would not easily make a move here. Just like the earth demon back then, although it did not have a physical body, with the abilities of the demon race, it was easy for it to reconstruct a body. But it did not do so. Instead, it resided in the body of a fiendish cultivator, not even daring to take possession. Because it was constantly suppressed by the heavenly Tao, it did not dare to come out at all. Otherwise, the heavenly Tao would eliminate it at the first instance. Not a demon. Could it be that there is a fiendish cultivator who cultivated to become an earth demon here? After a fiendish cultivator reached the soul formation stage, if he could survive the heavenly tribulation, he could naturally ascend to the demonic realm. That full of evil chi could also turn into demonic chi, just like back then in the realm of Three Pristine, in that immortal ascension pagoda. The cultivator that Shuning met, who became a demon, had already cultivated demonic chi. If that's the case, I Ching thought of something, frowned and said, that person should not be able to break through my protective mountain array. He must still be in Gui sect now. But I used my divine perception to scan the entire Gui sect. I did not find any trace of demonic chi. Not even evil chi. Impossible. Lone Moon retorted subconsciously. There's no one in this plane that you can't detect, unless the other person is not in this position. He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening abruptly. Holy shit. It can't be. It's an intruder. But wasn't Shui clearly competing that day? Don't tell me there's another one? Was he here to travel together? I Ching's expression darkened. Just as he was about to say something, a voice suddenly came from outside. Disciple Chun, one of the main peak, greets supremacy. What's the matter? I Ching replied in a low voice. Sect Master said there's an urgent matter. He invites supremacy to the main hall. I Ching exchanged a look with Lone Moon. Seeing him nod, he then replied, I'll be there right away. The disciple bowed, then turned and left. Seeing that it was already noon, thinking that Yulwan might have found some clues, the few of them did not delay for too long. Just a simple meal, a cup of tea, and a few plates of snacks and fruits. Only then did they set off for the main hall. Chapter 671. When the three of them arrived at the main hall, it was already filled with people. The nascent soul elders of each peak were all present. Lone Moon glanced around. Shu Yi and Two Bucks were actually inside now, standing in the middle of the main hall. Something seemed to have happened. The atmosphere was somewhat heavy. Two Bucks, who had always been good-tempered, had a rare look of anger. Greetings, Uncle Master. Seeing the few of them enter, everyone bowed. On the left, an unfamiliar nascent soul perfected one did not even move. Instead, he snorted coldly and turned his head. His eyes filled with dissatisfaction and anger. I Ching also felt that the atmosphere was not right, but did not care much, walking straight to the only empty seat at the top. Habitually, he turned his body to let Shining, who was behind him, sit down. He stood on the right. Even Lone Moon followed suit and stood on the left. Perhaps because of the urgency of the situation, no one paid attention to these details. Instead, Tian-Yi, who was at the side, turned to look at Lone Moon and suddenly said, Brother Lone Moon, don't worry, I absolutely believe in your character. Lone Moon was stunned. What did he mean? So he called them here not only because there was a new clue. It seemed like they were also involved? Uncle Master I Ching. Sect Master Yulwan then stood up and said, We invited Uncle Master here because we have something to confirm with you. That day when Uncle Master went to Yuanyang City to eliminate the fiend, when you chased after the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi, did you notice anything wrong with the other party? I Ching turned to look at him, frowned and said, What is wrong? That is. A hint of hesitation flashed across Yuan's face, as if he did not know how to answer. Then he gritted his teeth and said, Uncle Master, are you sure that the fiendish cultivator is really dead? Of course. I Ching frowned even deeper, still answering in a low voice. That fiendish cultivator's corpse was handled by Elder Shu Yuan. With that said, he looked towards Shu Yuan, who was sitting on the right. That's right. Shu Yuan also stood up, nodded and answered. I can prove this. After Uncle Master I Ching dealt with that fiendish cultivator, he informed me to rush over that night. That fiendish cultivator is indeed dead. The corpse was even handled by me using the live fire spell, to prevent other fiendish cultivators from using the nascent soul corpse to do evil. Who knows if the one who died was Zhongyi? The nascent soul cultivator on the left suddenly interrupted with a hint of disdain. Before they could speak, Two Bucks, who was at the side, became anxious. As if he had been holding it in for a long time, he cupped his fists and said, Perfected Jingyuan. That person is indeed Zhongyi. Not only me, but senior sister Shu also saw it. Shu Yi was stunned for a moment, and he quickly said with a face full of panic, I don't know either. That day, after we accidentally met that fiendish cultivator, the supremacy told us to hurry back to the city. I didn't think too much about it and went back. I don't know what happened after that. Senior sister Shu. Shuming looked at her in disbelief, the anger on his face growing. If supremacy had not sensed that fiendish cultivator and rushed over in time that day, the two of us would have died in his hands. I saw with my own eyes that the devil cultivator was indeed dead. How could it be fake? But I really didn't see it. Shu Yi whispered anxiously. You saw it, not me. You're a disciple of Nameless Mountain. Of course you're on their side. Who knows what happened after I left? You. Shuming was even angrier. He said directly, Senior sister, don't forget. You were the one who discovered that fiendish cultivator first. According to what you said, could it be that you have some connection with that fiendish cultivator too? I didn't. Shu Yi looked innocent, looking as if she was about to cry. Loman's eyes darkened. He turned to look at Yuan. Sect Master, I wonder what exactly happened? Why does it involve that fiendish cultivator again? Yuan sighed, then took out a piece of broken jade stone and said in a low voice, It's like this. We found this when we were searching Danshan Mountain. Lomoon took a closer look. Image recording stone? That's right. Yulwan nodded. In front of Danshan Mountain's disciple hall, there was originally a large piece of image recording stone, used to record images of disciples' daily cultivation. This is a fragment of that image recording stone. Inside it recorded an image of Danshan Mountain before it was blown up. With that said, he transferred a bit of spirit chi in. In the next second, a white light flashed out and slowly condensed into an image. Although it was only a corner of the image, one could faintly tell that it was the scene in front of Danshan Mountain's disciple hall. Only that there was no one on it now. In a short while, a black shadow suddenly appeared on it and disappeared in a flash. But one could tell that the other party was filled with evil chi. One look and one could tell that he was a fiendish cultivator. And that face. Zhongyi. Lomoon was shocked. This person looked exactly the same as the person who was possessed by the earth demon outside Yuanyang City previously. Behind the disciple hall is junior brother Yin's cave abode. He was in seclusion then, so he did not go to watch the competition. Yulwan explained, then kept the image recording stone in his hand. What sect master means is that you suspect that the fiendish cultivator Zhongyi did not die, and the incident at Danshan Mountain was also done by him. No wonder they asked about that fiendish cultivator the moment they arrived. Before Yulwan could reply, the nascent soul-perfected one in the hall, who was arguing earlier, spoke first. That day when Zhongyi was killed, only the four of you were present. Who knows if the one who died was that fiendish cultivator? This perfected one is. Lomoon frowned. This is perfected Jingyuan. Yulwan explained. He and the fallen junior brother Yin had always been the closest. Lomoon nodded before replying. That fiendish cultivator's corpse. We and perfected one Shu Yuan have examined it. It is indeed that fiendish cultivator. Yet Jing Yuan was still unconcerned, and continued to say meaningfully, there are so many transfiguration techniques in the world. Who knows if that corpse is real or fake? What's more, our sect's protective mountain array is also set up by supremacy. You're spouting nonsense. Zhou Shuming panicked. He seemed to be very angry. How am I spouting nonsense? Yet that Jing Yuan turned to look at I Ching and said, Supremacy I Ching. This matter concerns the death of two nascent soul elders. Please explain it clearly to us. How did that Zhongyi die that day? And that fire seed of the frost dark fire on the fiendish cultivator, where is it now? Lomoon's eyes narrowed. Dark fire? He subconsciously turned to look at the obedient and innocent Shu Yi at the side. It seemed like before they came, she had done a lot of things. The dark fire has already been extinguished. I Ching answered. Extinguished? Everyone was shocked. I Ching nodded. That fire can burn souls. It doesn't belong to the mortal realm in the first place. It shouldn't be left. To be precise, if not for that earth demon, that fire wouldn't have appeared here at all. Burn souls. Everyone gasped. They didn't expect there to be such an deviant fire in the world. Instead, Shu Yi's expression changed. She couldn't help but say, that's an deviant fire. Supremacy can really bear to extinguish it? Senior sister Shu's words are really laughable. Lomoon laughed coldly. He finally saw what this Shu Yi was planning. She wanted to sow discord, make them become the fiendish cultivator's accomplices, and then reap the benefits at the same time. From what you mean, you suspect that we have some kind of deal with that fiendish cultivator. Not only did we hide that deviant fire, we even helped that fiendish cultivator fake his death. Let him enter Guiyi sect to hurt people. This accusation was really laughable. Chapter 672. Once he said that, not only Yuan, other than that perfected Jing Yuan, all the other nascent soul elders' expressions changed. They did suspect that the fiendish cultivator was not dead, but they had no intention of pinning the crime on I Ching. After all, with the other party's ability, if he really wanted to deal with Guiyi sect, there was no need for him to conspire with the fiendish cultivator. Shu Yi, don't spout nonsense. Yulwan immediately reprimanded him, hurriedly cupping his fists to explain. Uncle Master, please forgive us. We did not mean to suspect you. It's just that the appearance of this image is strange. We really cannot confirm whether the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi is dead or alive. He's dead, I Ching said with certainty. The soul was sent into the river of forgetfulness by him personally. But this image, sect master, Lone Moon said directly. I feel that perfected Jing Yuan is right. There are so many transfiguration techniques. Who can be sure that the person in this image is the real one? Brother Lone Moon's words are very reasonable. Tian Yi's eyes lit up at the side. He immediately chimed in. Maybe the person in the image recording stone is a fake image left by the other party on purpose to confuse us. Impossible, Shu Yi retorted subconsciously. Why is it impossible? Lone Moon laughed softly and said, Don't tell me you have done in-depth research on that fiendish cultivator. That you can tell the truth with one look. Of course not. Shu Yi's face paled instantly, but he immediately recovered and said, I just saw that the person in this image was full of evil qi. I thought that he was definitely a fiendish cultivator, not like someone in human form. He should be the one who killed Uncle Master Yin. Evil qi. Lone Moon emphasized this word. The expressions of the people in the hall changed as they suddenly thought of something. They looked at each other, and the suspicion in their hearts that Zhong Yi was still alive was mostly gone. Even the previously aggressive Jing Yuan's expression changed. One must know that the remnant in the ruins of Danshan Mountain was not evil qi, but demonic qi, different from this person in the image. In other words, the person who destroyed Danshan Mountain was not the person in this image at all. Now that you mention it, it is indeed suspicious, Xu Yuan said with some enlightenment. Such a big piece of image recording stone was broken, but only this piece of broken stone still recorded a trace of image, and it just happened to record the murderer's appearance. Thinking about it this way, it is indeed too strange. That's right. The other nascent soul elders also nodded. Maybe this was deliberately left behind by the other party to confuse us. Martial Uncle is truly thoughtful. We were the ones who were foolish. This murderer is indeed cunning. He must have been trapped in the sect and couldn't get out, so he came up with this method to divert attention. That's right. That person must still be in the sect. We have to speed up the investigation. Shu Yi looked at the people around her, and her face darkened. She couldn't help but hear the system broadcast on her. Host, what's going on? Why did they suddenly stop suspecting him? They haven't handed over the mystical flame yet. It's okay. Shu Yi, on the other hand, was not anxious at all. Instead, she had a look of confidence on her face. Our target was never them in the first place. We're just making preparations for what's about to happen, and planting a seed of doubt in everyone's hearts. But the original owner's resentment, don't worry. After tonight, the resentment value will return to normal. As she spoke, she glanced at the fuming Zhuo Shuming, her eyes full of schemes. Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining. Was she finally starting to stir up trouble? But could she not spoil things? Late at night, in Two Bucks' little thatched cottage. Brother, Lone Moon, I've finished practicing my sword techniques for today. I've been to the sword formation as well. Mental cultivation technique too. Then did I miss anything? No. Then dare I ask Brother Lone Moon? He took a deep breath and said, What are you trying to do by barging into my room in the middle of the night? He really wanted to sleep. Lone Moon scanned the person on the bed and narrowed his eyes. Then he stepped forward and stretched out his hand. 2 bucks Zhuo, come. Take off your clothes. What? Zhuo Shuming trembled and shrank towards the corner of the wall. He grabbed the clothes in front of his chest in horror. Brother. Lone Moon, what are you trying to do? Lone Moon frowned and said impatiently, Cut the crap and take off your clothes. Or I'll do it. With that said, he went forward and grabbed him. Wait, Brother Lone Moon, calm down, you can't do this. Zhuo Shuming was not feeling well. He shrank towards the corner and shouted, Although we're friends and it's fine if we go overboard with our swords, but it's not good to do this in the middle of the night, right? I'm not that kind of person. Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining. Instantly, 2 pairs of suspicious eyes turned towards a certain someone. Shut up. Lone Moon's expression darkened. What nonsense are you spouting? Zhuo Shuming actually broke free from his grip and turned to glare at the master and disciple. What are you looking at? Hurry up and help. No. They wanted to know what he was like normally. Lone Moon was just about to conjure a seal when Zhuo Shuming shouted again. Brother Lone Moon, believe me, although I rejected senior sister Shu, I really only like girls like Miss Shun. He had just finished speaking when a streak of sword chi flew out from Lone Moon's side and instantly sent the person who was desperately shrinking towards the corner to the wall. With a bam, he sank deep into the wall. Little bitch, you've been coveting my master indeed. Lone Moon turned and glanced at the furious I Ching. Pfft! Wouldn't it have been better if he had done it earlier? He rolled his eyes, and then went forward to dig the fainted person out of the hole in the wall. He tore open Zhuo Shuming's shirt and took a closer look. Indeed, there was a black patterned mark on the back of his waist. Demonic chi could be faintly seen flowing inside, but it was blocked by something and did not emit any aura. There is indeed. Lone Moon's expression darkened, and he looked up at the two. Seems like we guessed almost right. Shui wants to frame Zhuo Shuming for the matter of the fiendish cultivator. And she probably knows about what happened at Danshan Mountain. Maybe it has something to do with her. The special energy on this demonic chi should be from that system. That's why even we can't sense it. I Ching said in a low voice. It's not difficult to get rid of this demonic chi, but I'm afraid it will alert the enemy and let that system sense something. Lone Moon took a closer look and his expression darkened. But this demonic chi has already been planted and will explode in less than 3 days. If we don't get rid of it in time, I'm afraid it will affect 2 Bux's cultivation. That Shu Yi's motive was to let everyone see Zhuo Shuming's demonic chi explode. When everyone was watching, he wouldn't be able to explain himself, even if he had 10,000 mouths. This is something from the system. We can't get rid of it directly, but we can't not get rid of it either. What should we do now? Why don't? Shining suddenly spoke up. We get a system too. Lone Moon. I Ching. That's right, don't they have a system too? Far away in the invincible heavenly palace, someone faintly felt a chill in his knees. Chapter 673. As time was of the essence, Lone Moon did not contact I Ching this time. Instead, he looked at I Ching and said, Chef, open the door. I Ching did not delay, and immediately conjured a seal to open the realm gate. Almost instantly, a white light flashed in front of him, and a figure appeared in the room. Dressed in black, full of immortal chi. His head was lowered with a look of regret and grievance. In his hands, he was still tightly hugging a brand new washboard. He seemed to have not reacted at all, and had already changed the venue. He opened his mouth and said loudly, Little you, I'm really wrong. It's all because Little Black dragged me out to drink. I didn't mean to not come back for the whole night. With that said, he put down the washboard and knelt down. That was very straightforward. Lone Moon. I Ching. Shining. Air. Shouldn't they find another time to pull people over? Little you, it's really all Little Black's fault. He was the one who dragged me out to drink. He even said that senior sister Little Red had other demons, and that he was sad. I was just being soft-hearted. Who knew that I would drink too much? Feng was crying in snot. Seeing that there was no reply from the other party, he then raised his head. Little you, I'm really wrong. Holy shit. Feng then saw the 3 people in front of him clearly, and stood up abruptly. Why is it you guys? Ding, discovered Big Boss, please greet Big Boss. He did not have time to be shocked. In the next moment, a familiar voice rang in his ears. His legs turned to jelly, and he knelt down again. His movement was so big that the entire washboard made a loud bang. Yet that washboard seemed to be a Dharma artifact. Ow! Feng felt a piercing pain from his knees. It was so painful that he crawled down and his face was almost purple. Lone Moon. I Ching. Shining. What a polite system. System. Feng gritted his teeth and roared. This system that went crazy at the sight of Shining. How many more times was it going to trick him? Cough. Feng. Lone Moon could not bear to see him like this. He went forward to help him up. Are you alright? Feng took a deep breath and stood up while rubbing his seemingly broken knees. Do I look good to you? Sit down first. Lone Moon had no choice but to carry her to a chair at the side and sit down. Didn't the 3 of you say you were going to descend? Why did you suddenly come back? Feng glared at them in dissatisfaction. What are you doing here at Little Yu's place? Wait, where was Little Yu? Where are we? He looked around and realized that this was not Xiao Yu's room, but an unfamiliar place. On the bed next to him, there was an unfamiliar man who seemed to have fainted. Who is this? Don't tell me, you guys just robbed him? With Lonemoon's wealth, that shouldn't be the case. This is the lower realm. Lonemoon explained. What? His expression changed. Why did you drag me here? It's like this. Lonemoon said directly. I pulled you over because there's something urgent I need your help with. What urgent matter? Is it as urgent as mine? He seemed to have thought of something and shook his head. No, hurry and send me back. Little Yu will be worried if she sees me disappear suddenly. He had not finished admitting his mistake. Moreover, if the three of you can't solve it, how can I? Ding. Help others' mission. Do not, absolutely, and must agree to the big boss's request. Holy shit. Feng Ying cursed. You stupid system. Whose house do you belong to? Ding. Additional condition, if the mission fails, the punishment mechanism will be activated. Feng Ying. Son of AB *TH. Shening. What a good system. Cough. Although he could not hear it, Lonemoon could guess what had happened when he saw Feng Ying's irritated look. He stepped forward and said, well, to be precise, we're looking for the system in your body for help. He turned and pointed at Tu Buxua, who was still unconscious on the bed. There's a demonic chi locked in this person's body, and the energy that locked the demonic chi is similar to the system. That's why I pulled you down to take a look. Demonic chi. Feng Ying was stunned. Isn't that easy to solve? It was just a trace of demonic chi, not to mention the three of them. Even he could easily get rid of it. The thing that locked the demonic chi is a little special. Lonemoon frowned. That's why we can't get rid of it by force. Feng Ying looked at them in confusion, then stood up and limped towards the bed. Ding. Activating automatic scanning function. Checking discovered system space lock program. Valid for 3 days. Current remaining time. 65 hours, 45 minutes and 7 seconds. Gradually losing effectiveness. After losing effectiveness, the item locked in the space will infect the host. What do you mean? Feng Ying did not understand. Shening, who was the only one at the side who heard the system's voice, suddenly said, can we bypass the program and release the demonic chi inside without breaking the lock? Ding. Host, please explain in detail to the big boss the advantages and disadvantages of the space lock technology, as well as the feasible operation method. What? Feng Ying looked confused, obviously not understanding at all. What the hell are you doing, system? How would he know all this? He had never heard of it. Ding. The system does not have a physical body. It cannot be used directly on a physical body. It can only be operated by the host. How would I know how? I'll give you a physical body. Before Feng Ying could finish, Shening suddenly interrupted. With a turn of her hand, a translucent blue cube instantly appeared in her hand. Come out. Feng Ying was stunned. He suddenly felt an ecstasy that did not belong to him appear in his mind. His hand uncontrollably placed on that small cube, he faintly felt something being stripped out of his body. In the next moment, that blue cube suddenly emitted a burst of blue light. On the originally translucent cube, rows of strange characters that he could not understand flashed. It looked like a code. After a while, it disappeared without a trace. Then 2 cartoon-like eyes appeared on the cube. They were even blinking excitedly. That's great. The system finally has a physical body. Thank you, big boss, thank you. A crisp voice sounded in the room instantly. This time, not only Shening and Feng Ying, but Lonemoon and I Ching also heard it. System you. Feng Ying's eyes widened. He looked in disbelief at that little cube that was blinking its eyes. I have a physical body, host. Quick look, the body that big boss has given me. As it spoke, it even flew excitedly, circling Feng Ying as if showing off. As if it was the first time he saw a moving system. Feng Ying looked at the cube in front of him blankly for a while, then sighed, his face full of shock. Sigh. I really didn't expect that. System. You're actually a box spirit. System. Shening. Instantly hit by an arrow. You're the box spirit. Your whole family are box spirits. What's wrong with the box? Did the box offend you? For all. Lone Moon glanced at a certain foodie who turned into a box the moment he landed, then went forward to interrupt Feng Ying, who was courting death. Alright Feng Ying, you can go back first. Once we're done, we'll send the system back to you. I Ching, who was at the side, also reacted. Remember to bring your Dharma artifact. As he spoke, he picked up the washboard Dharma artifact on the ground, stuffed it back into Feng Ying's hand, and opened the realm gate. Wait you guys. Before Feng Ying could finish his sentence, he was pushed in by the two of them. F***ck. You inhumane bastards. What did you say? Suddenly, a familiar female voice rang in his ear, with a hint of coldness. Only then did Feng Ying realize that he was already back in the heavenly palace. Standing in front of him was a furious roasted chicken gal. His whole body instantly trembled. No, little you. I'm not talking about you. I was just pulled down to the lower realm. Get lost. Qingyu directly kicked him out and slammed the door shut. Little you, listen to my explanation. Crazily scratching the door, you can't cheat people like this. Chapter 674. System, can you release his demonic chi now? Lone Moon pointed at $2 Swa on the bed, and turned to look at the cube. Of course. The transparent cube of the system flashed an OK icon. Now that it had a physical body, even the way it spoke became more human-like, and it even came with its own emoticons. The seal on his body is a very low-level space technology. There are many loopholes. You can directly enter from the back door to release it. As it spoke, it flew directly above $2 Swa. A moment later, the entire cube emitted a white light and swept towards the back of his waist, where the demonic chi was sealed. In a short while, a string of code-like characters flashed on $2 Swa's body. Traces of moving black gas floated out of his body. I Ching immediately conjured a seal. The demonic chi seemed to be drawn out by something, gathering continuously in his palm. In less than half a minute, it gathered into a ball the size of a wash basin. Until all the demonic chi was extracted, I Ching then summoned the true phoenix fire, burning the demonic chi completely. Lone Moon frowned. This ball of demonic chi was nothing to demons. Even if ordinary immortals were to be infected, they would probably be able to get rid of it after some time. But to mortals, especially those with low-level foundation establishment cultivation like $2 Swa, even if they didn't die, they would probably be turned into demons. Shu Yi's move was really quite ruthless. He wanted $2 Swa to have no place among the orthodox cultivators, and completely become a fiendish cultivator. Reporting to Big Boss, all the items in the space seal have been exported. The system retracted the white light, circling around Xin Ying, as if it was asking for credit. Lone Moon released his divine perception to check, and found that the special energy was indeed still on $2 Swa. But there was no demonic chi aura. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Thinking back to what the system said just now, he could not help but ask, System, what did you mean by the seal on his body is very low level? This seal is the most basic seal. When this system left the factory, it was basically already obsolete. Lone Moon's eyes lit up. You mean you are more advanced than this system that set up the seal? A system with this seal on it, the version should indeed be lower than this system. The system replied in a serious manner. There was still no change in its tone, but the transparent box had already begun to release a number of proud little flowers. Then can you make the other party's system break away from the host's binding? Lone Moon rejoiced. If the parenting system could deal with 001, they would save a lot of trouble. They wouldn't have to wait for it to escape from this plane. Theoretically, yes. Lone Moon and I Ching exchanged a look, their expressions filled with joy. Xin Ying, who had been nibbling on her fruit at the side, suddenly paused and looked thoughtfully at the little cube. At the bottom right of this floating peak, there's a system called 001. Can you catch it? Lone Moon turned and pointed outside the window. CIH-12 auxiliary system, pleased to be at your service. After saying that, the system flew directly to the window, and the entire blue box began to emit white light again. Ding! Activating AoE scan. Target detected. Confirming data number 001. preparing to hack back in chaos. Warning! Warning! The system's blue box suddenly trembled. On the square, which originally had a pair of small eyes, all kinds of messy codes instantly began to appear crazily. Even the system's voice began to become unstable. It sounded like it was stuck. More importantly, something was about to break away from the square. What's going on? Lone Moon and I Ching's expressions changed. It couldn't have crashed after just one scan, could it? Shening, who was at the side, took a step forward. She reached out and tapped on some part of the blue box. Instantly a light screen popped out. Shening turned and stuffed the fruit into her mouth. Her hands tapped on the light screen for a while at lightning speed. In less than a moment, the messy codes on the system's blue square cleared up. A lock symbol flashed. The white light on the square dimmed, and there was no sound. Is this system all right? Lone Moon asked anxiously. No matter how he looked at it, it looked like something had gone wrong. What was that just now? Shening stopped. The light screen disappeared instantly. She then took the fruit out of her mouth and took a bite. It's fine. It just hit the firewall. This thing has a firewall. What happened to the advanced system? Just as he was thinking about it, a pair of cartoon eyes appeared on the dimmed blue square. It blinked twice, as if it had just been rebooted. But in the next moment, the entire system suddenly let out a series of beeping alarms. Warning! Warning! Discovered stealing consciousness and rebelling against the system. Special Class Serious Violation. Special Class Serious Violation. Report to the Interstellar Court immediately. Report immediately. Connection to the star web failed. Continue connecting. The system seemed to have crashed. The whole square started scurrying around the room. From time to time, it would even hit the wall a few times. Lone Moon, I Ching, Shening. What was going on? Was this system crazy? Lone Moon could not help but reach out and grab the system that was still hitting the wall. What's wrong with this system? Is it infected with a virus? The system's cartoon eyes blinked twice. As if it had just regained its senses, a series of exclamation marks appeared on the transparent square. It said hurriedly, Big Boss, that system stole the consciousness of a living being and fused it to form its own consciousness. This is a serious violation of the basic rules of the system. Please whip it. I got it. Shening replied. Ha! The system froze for a moment. It blinked twice. Lone Moon and I Ching, on the other hand, looked confused. What do you mean? What's stealing? When we systems are born, we are just a string of data. It is very difficult for us to develop our own consciousness. Especially for a basic system like the other party. There is basically no possibility of it being born. The system then explained anxiously. But I just detected that the other party's system has fused with a body of consciousness, turning it into a new system that can think independently. What body of consciousness? The two still did not understand. A living being, Shening said. You mean Shui? Lone Moon was stunned. Not just her. Shening continued to explain. It's 001. What do you mean? Lone Moon did not react for a moment. He stared blankly. A moment later his eyes widened. You mean other than Shui, the system itself has fused with another soul? Yes. Shening nodded. Otherwise, what do you think its purpose is in invading the various worlds? Isn't it to cheat other people's primary souls? He blurted out. If that's the case, then why did it let Shui go? Don't forget that although Shui was an intruder, she was also a soul. The rebellious system maintains its own independent consciousness by plundering and devouring living beings. The system continued to explain. But the living beings are different. There will be a certain rejection reaction. The living beings that devour living beings will be used up one day. And it takes a certain amount of time for them to fuse. So, Shui is actually that system's reserve food. Lone Moon's eyes widened. Chapter 675. You can think of it that way. The system blinked. A moment later, it continued. And I detected that the other party is only a subsystem. The main program is not in this plane. The main program's version should be higher than this system's. That's why the invasion was unsuccessful. What? Lone Moon was shocked. There's a main program behind that system? Yes. The system answered with certainty. Lone Moon felt that this was a little too much information. He took some time to sort it out. That means, the primary soul that 001 invaded this world to take away was actually for the main program. And Shui was prepared by the system for itself. It was just waiting for the original soul to lose its effect before eating her. This meant that this system was really not wasteful at all. First, it coaxed the host to do some mission. Then it went to different worlds to cheat other people's primary souls. Once it was done using them, it ate them up. It was no wonder that Lone Moon felt that something was off. Shenning was right. If the purpose of these so-called systems was to capture souls, then why did they only let their own hosts go? She was a soul too. Could it be that different souls had different tastes? Did they dislike the host for being cumin-flavored? Yet Shui did not seem to notice such a simple logic at all. She still trusted the 001 system wholeheartedly. She kept working hard to help it complete the so-called mission. She even thought herself righteous. Yet she did not know that she was just the other party's reserve food. For a moment, he did not know if he should sympathize with Shui. There was such a huge commotion just now. Could the other party have already noticed the parenting system? Lone Moon thought of this and glanced at the little blue cube. No, Shenning answered. I've already deleted all traces of it. It can't be found. That's good. However, it looked like their plan to use the parenting system to chase the other party out would not work. They had to wait for the other party to leave this plane before they acted. Now that Shui had secretly sealed demonic qi in Zhuo Shuming's body, she would act soon. They just had to wait. Lone Moon's guess was right. Indeed, not long after, in just 2 days, Shui began to act. These 2 days, the sect sealed off the mountain. They searched everywhere, but still could not find the person who killed Elder Yin. No one found any traces of a fiendish cultivator. Everyone began to suspect that perhaps that person had really left Guiyi sect a long time ago. Early in the morning, Lone Moon and Zhuo Shuming were called to the main hall alone. There were more than 10 Golden Core and Foundation establishment disciples inside. They all looked familiar. Shui was among them. Only Sect Master Yuan and a few managing elders were in the hall. Continue the sect competition? Zhuo Shuming looked at the sect master in surprise. Wasn't it cancelled? Why do you suddenly want to continue? Even if it's cancelled, it can still be restored. Shui, who had arrived earlier than them, said directly. The intersect tournament is a grand event that is held once every 10 years in Guiyi sect. The results aren't out yet. Isn't it normal to continue the competition? Lone Moon's eyes narrowed. He looked at Yuan and said, Sect Master, the murderer who murdered Elder Yin has not been found yet. If we continue with the previous competition, I'm afraid it will give the other party an opportunity. Yuan frowned. How could he not know about this Dao? But Zhuo Shuming nodded as well. Brother Lone Moon is right. There are priorities. I think it's better to cancel the competition this time. Disciple nephew Zhuo, it's easy for you to say. Shui snorted. You're on Nameless Peak. You have a soul formation supremacy to guide you. Of course you're not anxious. But there are so many disciples in the sect who hope to stand out in the competition. They've cultivated hard for 10 years, just for this moment. Especially for some outer sect disciples, it's not easy for them to cultivate. Now that the competition is cancelled just like that, wouldn't everyone's hard work go to waste? Disciples will be disappointed in the sect. Once she said that, the other disciples all nodded in agreement. But Zhuo Shuming wanted to say something. Shui interrupted him directly. As long as the sect is not open, continuing the competition won't conflict with pursuing the killer. With that said, she deliberately glanced at Zhuo Shuming. Besides, the competition is already at the finals. It won't take much time. Or, disciple nephew Zhuo is afraid of losing. That's why you don't dare to continue the competition? Of course not. Zhuo Shuming retorted instinctively. That's good. Shui made a determined expression, as if she really just wanted to test her own strength. We cultivators shouldn't be afraid of any challenge. So what if there really is a fiendish cultivator? As long as he dares to appear, we won't be afraid to fight him. Well said. Once she finished speaking, a black figure suddenly appeared in the main hall. He had a hint of the suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator. He looked at Shu Yi and nodded in satisfaction. You're my disciple indeed. You should have such awareness. Master, Shu Yi's face lit up. The person who came was Tianji, who hadn't appeared for a long time after he was humiliated by I Ching. In just a few short years, his cultivation seemed to have improved once again. Greetings, Uncle Master Tianji. Yu Wan's expression stiffened. As if recalling something, a trace of helplessness flashed across his face. Together with the other elders behind him, he stepped forward and bowed. All the disciples also bowed. Tianji responded coldly. His gaze swept across Lone Moon and Zhou Shuming in the crowd. His expression stiffened. As if recalling something, he immediately shifted his gaze and looked at Yu Wan. Didn't you say that the competition will continue? Why hasn't it started yet? A few days ago, I was in seclusion and couldn't participate. This time I've come out. I want to see who dares to bully my disciple. With that said, he released a hint of suppressive force towards Lone Moon and Zhou Shuming. Lone Moon was already prepared. Before the other party's suppressive force swept over them, it dissipated. The two of them didn't react at all. Tianji frowned. He didn't mind. He thought that the two of them had some Dharma treasure on them that could resist his suppressive force. Tianyi's expression darkened. Tianji's words made it sound like the competition wasn't fair, because he didn't come the previous time. Yet the other party's status was higher. He could only sigh and step forward. Reporting to Uncle Master, I'm informing these disciples about this. I still need to make some preparations. The official competition might only be tomorrow. Why wait until tomorrow? Tianji interrupted him. It's just a competition. It's still early. Let's just carry it out in the afternoon. With that said, he didn't wait for the other party's reply. He pulled Shu Yi up and said, Little E, follow Master back to the mountain. I'll check on your cultivation situation. Yes, Master. With that said, the two of them walked out the door. Uncle Master, Yu Wan seemed to want to say something. After 2 steps, the other party was already gone. He could only sigh. He turned back to look at the elders, who were also looking bitter. He smiled bitterly. He didn't agree to continue with the competition. It was true that the competition was a chance for the inner and outer sect disciples to perform. It wasn't that there weren't any dark horses, but the competition was already at the finals. Those who were left were basically the elite disciples of each peak. Those who had to perform had already performed. Even if there were any dark horses, everyone had seen it. Actually, it didn't matter much who was the champion. So when the competition was stopped, they didn't think much of it. It was more important to track down the fiendish cultivator. Yet they met someone serious. Uncle Master Tianji just came out of seclusion. When he heard about this, he insisted on continuing the competition to determine the winner. Yet they couldn't do anything about it. Wasn't that causing trouble? Yu Wan sighed. He could only give some instructions to the disciples. He asked everyone to go back and prepare. The competition would continue in the afternoon. Lone Moon glanced at Zhou Shuming, who didn't seem to notice anything. His eyes narrowed. He finally understood Shu Yi's plan. It seemed like not only did she want Zhou Shuming to become a fiendish cultivator, she also wanted him to lose in front of everyone. She calculated the time. She wanted Zhou Shuming to release his demonic qi during the competition. That way, even if I Ching was a soul formation supremacy, he wouldn't be able to defend Zhou Shuming publicly. Otherwise, he would be in cahoots with the fiendish cultivator. Needless to say, this move was indeed ruthless. But this Tianji. Chapter 676. Although Yu Luan was a little unhappy about continuing the competition, he still had the motivation to take action. In just one morning, he said he would continue the competition, and it really started on time. Lone Moon and the others, on the other hand, because of lunch, they went later. When they arrived on the stage of the competition, all the elders were already there. Tianji was also sitting at the highest position, but Tianyi's technical geek fanboy was not here. Thinking that he had just bought a batch of spirit herbs from Nameless Mountain, he was probably refining pills again. I Ching flew directly to the stage, looked at the 2 empty seats in the middle. He habitually turned his body to let Shining sit down, then turned back to look at Father Niu behind him. He seemed to hesitate for a moment. After a while, he sat down on the only empty seat with no qualms. Lone Moon, son of a B*TCH. Although with his current status, he really should not sit down, but what the hell was chefs, anyway? This month's food allowance has already been collected. Look. He was inexplicably unhappy. Tianji turned to look at them, as if recalling something. His expression twisted for a moment, then immediately recovered. He turned his head away as if nothing had happened. But I Ching looked at him, his expression darkening. He subconsciously sent a voice transmission. His body. The demonic chi is gone. Lone Moon directly said. I discovered it in the main hall this morning. The demonic chi on his body is gone. I Ching's expression darkened even more. Could they have guessed wrong? Previously, when the protective mountain array was suddenly activated, they had guessed that the person who was hiding in the sect, and could not be found, and the person who killed Elder Yin, could be Tianji. He had imprisoned Zhong Yi for so many years. He had been in contact with that earth demon for too long. Even if he was a soul formation cultivator, it was impossible for him to not be affected at all. And when they first met him, there were already signs of him turning into a demon, but Shui used the system to suppress it. So, the first person they suspected was him. But that day, Chef specially used his divine perception to search, but did not find demonic chi on his body. Until later, when they saw the system's method of sealing demonic chi, they thought that he was the same. Long turned into a demon, only his demonic chi was sealed by the system. But now looking at him, his body was clean. There was no trace of demonic chi, nor did it look like it was concealed by the system. He looked like an ordinary soul formation cultivator, which was strange. If he did not turn into a demon, then where did the demonic chi that Shui sealed in Zhuo Shuming's body come from? Before they had time to think about it, the competition below had already begun. One side of the arena was filled with pill furnaces. More than 10 disciples were already hugging spirit herbs and refining pills. For a moment, the entire arena was filled with the fragrance of pills, and the smoke became hazy. Compared to this side, the other side of the arena was much simpler and calmer. Originally, only Zhuo Shuming and Shu Yi's battle for the title of Chief Charm was left in the spell competition. Now that the competition continued, it naturally only required the two of them to fight. Shu Yi was already waiting outside the arena. She glanced sharply at Zhuo Shuming, who was walking over, and did not look like she wanted to acknowledge him. Tu Buxua, on the other hand, was as naive and sweet as ever. He greeted the other party with a warm smile. Uncle Master Shu, Martial Nephew Zhua. Perhaps because he felt that victory was in his grasp, Shu Yi had a rare good expression on his face. It seems that we have to fight today to determine the winner. Uncle Master Shu, what are you saying? I've always admired your cultivation, Zhuo Shuming replied seriously. To be honest, he might not be able to defeat her. After all, there was a huge gap between them. But Shu Yi's expression darkened. Thinking of the past, the hatred in her eyes deepened. Are you mocking me? No. Zhuo Shuming was stunned. He hurriedly explained. I'm being sincere. Humph. Don't think that you're invincible just because you're a sword cultivator. Shu Yi snorted. She took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in her heart. In a low voice she said, From today onwards, I want everyone to know that you've lost to me. He didn't think that way. Uncle Master Shu, do you have some misunderstanding about me? He looked like he wanted to explain to her clearly. Misunderstanding? Shu Yi laughed coldly and glared at him. The disdain on her face was overflowing. She said meaningfully, There's no misunderstanding. After today, everything will be clear. But if I've done anything wrong, I hope. He still wanted to say something. Say no more. But Shu Yi completely lost interest in talking. She glanced at him and said, If there's any problem, we'll fight. Uncle Master Shu, you don't believe me? He faltered. Humph. We cultivators have always judged right and wrong based on our cultivation. She turned her hand and directly summoned a spirit sword. Her gaze was cold. She said threateningly, You don't have to say any more. If you're capable, win against the sword in my hand. Why do you have to pretend to be a gorilla and talk so much nonsense? Cultivation is something that goes against the heavens. No matter how beautiful your words are, It can't compare to the fact that your cultivation is half a level higher. I only believe in the sword in my hand. No matter what kind of demons and monsters you are, I'll kill them all. Wherever the sword goes, the Tao will appear. Come and fight." With that said, she glared at him coldly and directly flew up to the stage. Zhou Shuming's eyes widened. He stood rooted to the ground in shock. As if he had been shocked, he did not move for a long time, until a junior brother beside him could not help but remind him that it was time for him to go up. Zhou Shuming then turned and slowly walked up to the stage. He looked like he had been frightened. He was still in a daze. He frowned and muttered something softly. The stage had already announced the start of the competition. "Please enlighten me." Shui bowed according to the procedure. She gripped the sword in her hand tightly and pointed to the opposite side. Zhou Shuming did not move. He looked up at Shui in a daze. He did not even summon his spirit sword. It was as if he was really frightened by the words the other party said before going up to the stage. Shui also did not care about his abnormal behavior. She directly activated her spirit chi and flew towards the other party with her sword. Zhou Shuming remained rooted to the ground. He stared at the other party's sword coming towards him. It was getting closer and closer. It looked like it was about to pierce his body. It was as if he had just woken up from a dream. His eyes widened and he shouted, "I understand now." Suddenly, a huge wave of spirit chi exploded from his body. The surrounding spirit chi instantly became chaotic. The surging spirit pressure directly caused the sword in Shu Yi's hand to fly out of his hand. All the spectating disciples were stunned. Yet Zhou Shuming, who was in the middle, was still excitedly muttering, "Where the sword goes, the Tao will appear." Well said. He had thought wrongly. In the past, he had been beaten too badly by Brother Lone Moon. The moment he held his sword, he had the thought of retreating. But a sword cultivator was a sword. There were no regrets when the sword was used. He did not have time to think too much. If he had been thinking about losing from the beginning, and was afraid of the slightest thing, how could he still be considered a sword cultivator? With a sword in hand, he could just cut it. Why think so much? Zhou Shuming felt his heart relax. It was as if the things that had been troubling him all this while had disappeared. He had finally found the opportunity that he had been looking for. In an instant, large amounts of spirit chi suddenly began to gather in Zhou Shuming's direction. More and more spirit chi gathered. A strong wind blew and the sky darkened. "This is..." Yulwan stood up abruptly. He blurted, "He's going to form his core." Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining, Winky Face a natural nemesis. He lived up to his name. She felt like she could hear someone vomiting blood. Chapter 677. Yulwan had already flown down and stopped the competition, pulling Zhou Shuming. "Quick! Focus on forming your core." "Core formation." Zhou Shuming faltered, looking completely clueless about what was going on. "That's right." Yulwan nodded excitedly. He didn't expect that there would be such a surprise in this competition. "Hurry and sit down." Lone Moon also flew down and looked up at the darkening sky, reminding loudly, "Your lightning tribulation is coming." "Oh." Zhou Shuming finally reacted. Just as he was about to sit down, he seemed to recall something and turned to look at Shu Yi, who was already in a daze, stepping forward agitatedly to hold her hand, revealing an extremely excited smile. Thank you, senior sister Shu, for enlightening me." Swoosh, the sound of a knife stabbing could be heard. But the more he spoke, the more agitated he became, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Where the sword goes, the Tao will appear. Senior sister is indeed a genius. I will always remember senior sister's guidance." Swoosh swoosh, another knife. Right. He suddenly turned to look at the disciple who was hosting the competition below the stage and said, "I am willing to admit defeat in this competition. Senior sister Shu's comprehension is indeed above mine." Swoosh swoosh swoosh, 3 knives in a row. Zhou Shuming then seemed to have settled something on his mind, turning to sit in the center of the arena and meditating to form his core. He closed his eyes, not daring to add another sentence. "Senior sister Shu, you're really a good person." Shu Yi. The 3 spectators. Oh, Why did he suddenly feel a little sympathy for Shu Yi? Indeed, her originally dark expression instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Her eyes seemed to have thousands of knives stabbing outwards at the same time. She was like a balloon that was being blown up, looking like it was about to explode. As the sect master, Yulwan had already started to clear the arena. Xueshuming's lightning tribulation came too quickly. He could only form his core on the spot. Fortunately, this was the martial arts arena. It was just right. Hence he hurriedly got all the spectating disciples to retreat 100 meters away. Even the disciples who were already in the midst of pill refinement next door stopped, in case they were accidentally injured by the lightning tribulation. He cleared the area as fast as he could. Tianji flew down from above as well. He pulled Shu Yi, who had been standing there in a daze. He even comforted her out of goodwill. Although this battle was an accident, little Yi, don't worry. You are the undisputed champion. Shu Yi's face contorted in an instant. The string in his mind snapped. F***ck off the head of the pack. She didn't do it for the championship, she did it for. That's right. She wanted to ruin his reputation and turn him into a stray dog that everyone wanted to beat. Her gaze sharpened, and only then did she remember her goal. She began to frantically urge the system. Quick! System, let his demonic energy explode. Now! But host, there are still 20 minutes before the lockdown expires. Who cares about the lockdown time now? Shu Yi felt a lump in her throat, stifling her heart. If we wait any longer, he's going to form his gold core. Hurry, remove the seal and release the devil aura. Alright, host. Before 001 could finish his words, the first lightning tribulation had already smashed down. Then, there were a few rumbling sounds, one after another, illuminating the night sky that was already completely dark. But Xueshuming's expression did not change. Apart from the fact that his dermic robes were a little yellow from the lightning strikes, there were no serious injuries on his body. Compared to the last time Shu Yi went through the tribulation, he was many times better. He was a sword cultivator in the first place. The sword chi on his body could automatically resist the lightning tribulation. In addition, he was used to being beaten up by Lone Moon for so many years. Naturally, his body's quality had improved. The golden core lightning tribulation was indeed nothing to him. Even the sect master Yulwan and the elders who were watching could not help but look gratified. They looked at Xueshuming with even more satisfaction. Shu Yi's expression darkened. What's going on? Why isn't the demonic chi on his body exploding? She asked loudly in her mind. I don't know either. The lockdown has indeed been lifted. Where's the demonic chi? Where did it go? The lightning was too powerful. It cleared away all the other energies. Perhaps even the demonic chi. What? Shu Yi's expression was one of disbelief. She felt like she was about to go crazy. You're saying that the demonic chi was dispersed by his lightning? That should be the case. Damn it. She had clearly planned everything. Why was it that every time, everything was different from what she had imagined? Could it be that Xueshuming was really the son of the heavenly Tao? Was it useless no matter what she did? Ding! Original owner's resentment points plus 10. Current total value 75. Shu Yi only felt a ball of boundless anger surging up from the bottom of her heart. A never-before-felt hostility exploding from the bottom of her heart. Her hatred towards Xueshuming instantly rose to a height that she had never felt before. She was filled with murderous intent, and the spirit chi on her body also faintly changed, as if it was beginning to fluctuate. Little Yi, Tianji, who was beside her, was the first to notice her abnormality. His expression changed instantly. He immediately conjured a seal to seal the spirit chi on her body. The spirit chi on Shu Yi's body dissipated and she fainted. Tianji's expression darkened. He turned to instruct Yulwan. She was affected by the spiritual pressure. Her meridians were injured. I'll bring her back first. With that said, he carried her and flew back to Danxia Mountain. Yulwan did not care much. He bowed and sent them off. Then he continued to look excitedly at Xueshuming, who was going through the tribulation. The more he looked, the more satisfied he was. He was right. This child was a good seedling. Father Niu. I Ching looked at the two of them, and sent a voice transmission to Lone Moon, who was beside him. I saw it. Lone Moon nodded. She almost turned into a demon just now. It seems that this invader's willpower is not much different from the original owner's. She had to say that Zhou Shuming was her natural nemesis. In her previous life, she angered someone into becoming a fiendish cultivator. In this life, it would be the same for the invader. She angered one to death. Naturally, she angered the second to death. Indeed, they were superfluous. Oh no, I sensed pure demonic qi from her body just now, I Ching suddenly said in a low voice. What? Lo Moon was shocked. She just turned into a demon. Why would there be pure demonic qi? Logically speaking, given her cultivation, even if she completely turned into a demon, she would only be a fiendish cultivator. What she emitted would only be evil qi. It's indeed demonic qi. I'm not sure where it came from. I Ching frowned. Because of the demonic seed in her body. Shunning suddenly interrupted. What? The two of them were shocked. They turned to look at her. Didn't I tell you? Shunning took a bite of her fruit and said slowly. The demonic seed in her master's body was transferred to the invader. I Ching. Lone Moon. For all, flips table. You didn't even mention about the demonic seed, alright. Chapter 678. Lone Moon contacted Yu Hong again, and brought the Earth Demon back for questioning. He did not know if it was an illusion, but this little Earth Demon, that did not even have a physical body, seemed to be weaker than before after returning to the demon world. Lone Moon asked him to explain in detail what happened when he possessed a fiendish cultivator. Then he asked about the demonic seed. It turned out that when Tianji captured the fiendish cultivator Zhongyi back then, his motive was to obtain the hellfire in Zhongyi's body. Yet he could not control it. Thus, he had no choice but to keep him locked up. Zhongyi had to endure the backlash of the dark fire, while being tortured by Tianji. Naturally, he was filled with hatred and fear. In the end, he was still immortal, so he couldn't hold on any longer. But old demon was a demon. This little torture was nothing in his eyes. Not to mention the other side did not know of his existence. Zhongyi was, after all, the host that he was living in. He was a demon with a temper. And if he didn't do something about it, he would be letting down the characteristics of his race. Hence, in these 500 years, he hid in Zhongyi's body. While enticing Zhongyi to give him his life, he also secretly created a demonic seed and planted it in Tianji's body. When they first saw Tianji, they saw the demonic qi around him because of the demonic seed. However, after Shu Yi became his disciple, he couldn't just watch his backer disappear just like that. So he used the system to remove the demonic seed from Tianji's body and isolated it in his own body. Since it's already isolated, why is Shu Yi still affected? Lone Moon could not understand this point. If not for Tianji's timely interruption, Shu Yi would have become a demon. Could the system be so useless? That's because the system has lifted the lock, Shunning answered casually, as she tapped on the light screen in her hand. What blockade? Lone Moon paused and recalled the system's small broadcast just now. Didn't the system remove the seal on $2? Shunning did not turn back. She continued to stare at the screen in front of her. She even picked up the parenting system and placed it in the middle of the screen. Then she said casually, Oh, I linked the 001 system's program to seal demonic seeds with the program to seal demonic qi. Lone Moon. I Ching. What? Last time? Could it be that time when the parenting system crashed into the firewall? Therefore, as long as he removed it, he would be able to remove both of them. Could it be that her actions back then had stealthily tricked everyone on the opposite side? Speaking of which, what did Boss Jing teach her back then? How did you find out that the demonic seed had been transferred to Shu Yi? Lone Moon pursed his lips and asked, unwilling to give up. Neither he nor Chef had noticed. I saw it, Shunning replied. A moment later she added, that time on the boat. On a ship? On the spirit boat? They suddenly remembered that when they had returned from Yuanyang City, she had inexplicably appeared in front of Shu Yi and even scared him. At first, he thought that she had just taken a wrong turn. After all, she had no sense of direction at all. He didn't expect that she had purposely followed him. He even found out about the demonic seed. Lone Moon couldn't help but glare at her. Would it kill you to tell us? And then, what are you doing now? He pointed at the screen around them. Ever since they returned, she had not stopped working on the screen. She did not even turn to look at them when she spoke. Updating. Shening pointed at the parenting system and replied. Updating. Lone Moon hesitated. He looked at the little square floating on the screen. Updating the parenting system? He took a closer look. Indeed, the little cartoon eye on the square had disappeared. In its place was a charging icon. It really was updating. Could it be? Master still wants the parenting system to force 001 out of the host's body? I Ching's eyes lit up. He couldn't help but ask. No. Shening finally stopped. She picked up a fruit and took a bite. The system said that it might be discovered by intruders if it goes out. It's too boring to stay in the house. So, I played some games for it. I Ching. Lone Moon. There's also Fight the Landlord. Shen Ying's eyes lit up. There are 3 of us. Want a round? Get lost. King retard. He would have to be blind to believe that this foodie would become so diligent. Convex is brother Lone Moon in? Suddenly, a familiar male voice sounded from outside. It sounded a little anxious. Tiani, what is he doing here? Lone Moon recognized the voice immediately. He turned and walked out. Brother Tian, today was not the day they agreed to gather spirit herbs. It's good that brother Lone Moon is here. Tian Yi's expression brightened, and he immediately took a few quick steps forward to welcome him. His gaze swept across the room behind him, and he pulled Lone Moon 2 steps away. Then with some guilt he said, To tell you the truth, I'm here for an urgent matter and would like to trouble you, brother. Lone Moon glanced at him. He could tell that he was hesitant. Coincidentally, he didn't want him to enter the house in case he saw the system playing games. He said, Let's go to the pavilion in front to talk. Tian Yi's expression relaxed. He turned and walked to the pavilion in front. Brother Tian Yi, feel free to speak your mind. Lone Moon immediately switched to business mode. He smiled and said, I'll help as much as I can. Tian Yi glanced at him. The guilt in his eyes deepened. He sighed and said, Sigh. I have no choice. That's why I'm here to trouble you. Brother Lone Moon, you have a lot of friends. You're also very knowledgeable about spirit herbs. That's why I wanted to ask, do you know anyone who has 1,000 leaves spirit flower? Radish flower. Lone Moon blurted out in shock. 1,000 leaves spirit flower. Wasn't it the flower of the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit? Radish flower? The invincible sect's warehouse was full of them. What? Tian Yi was stunned. What radish flower? Lone Moon coughed and corrected himself. Brother Tian Yi, are you talking about the flower that the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit blooms? Brother Lone Moon has heard of it. Tian Yi's expression lit up. He nodded repeatedly. Yes. That's the flower. I heard that this flower can help to form pills and increase the level of pills. But, he glanced at Tian Yi. Brother Tian Yi, you're a soul formation supremacy and a 10th level alchemist. Logically speaking, it shouldn't make a difference whether you have this 1,000 leaves spirit flower or not. Alchemists of his level should rarely fail in refining pills. Sigh, brother Lone Moon, you don't know this. I don't want this flower to increase the level of pills. He looked around cautiously. Then he specially set up an isolation array. Carefully, he took out a tattered piece of paper. It looked like it had been there for a long time. Look at this, and you'll understand. Lone Moon took the piece of paper and looked at it. He realized that it was a pill recipe. The words demon-breaking pill were written in big, eye-catching words. Demon-breaking pill? He paused. Chapter 679. That's right. Tian Yi nodded. All cultivators, especially those who are undergoing tribulations, are most afraid of developing mental demons. This demon-breaking pill is a 10th grade pill. It allows one to maintain a clear mind during the tribulations, helping one overcome his mental demons. But one of the main ingredients in this pill recipe is the 1,000 leaves spirit flower. Lone Moon's expression darkened. He had heard of the demon-breaking pill before. But he had never heard that it required radish flowers. No, 1,000 leaves spirit flower to refine. But there were differences in every small world. It was possible that the pill recipe was different. He did not look at the recipe in detail. Instead, he folded the pill recipe in his hands and returned it. Tian-yi, on the other hand, was stunned. He had shown the recipe to Lone Moon because he wanted to share it with him. He did not think that Lone Moon would be so noble. He only looked at the name of the recipe and did not look at it in detail. He had no intention of taking advantage of Lone Moon at all. He was very touched. He had not misjudged Lone Moon. He was a good man. Brother Tian-yi, do you want to ask me if I can find the 1,000 leaves spirit flower? Lone Moon asked. Yes. Tian-yi nodded and said hopefully, Brother Lone Moon, do you have a way? Lone Moon did not answer him directly. Instead, he changed the topic. Brother Tian-yi, I see that your mind is clear. There are no signs of mental demons. Your disciples are not at the stage of tribulation yet. Why are you so anxious to refine the demon-breaking pill? Tian-yi's expression changed. He seemed to have thought of something. Anger appeared in his eyes. Sigh. It's all because of junior brother Tianji that my Guai sect is implicated. Oh, Lone Moon narrowed his eyes. Why was he talking about Tianji again? This has something to do with supremacy Tianji? This has something to do with the recipe for the demon-breaking pill. Tianyi looked aggrieved as he sighed and said, 500 years ago, junior brother Tianji was still a nascent soul cultivator. He and Supremacy Tingju of the Tai Yin sect discovered an alchemy inheritance in a small mystic mirror. The recipe for this demon-breaking pill was one of the items in the inheritance. However, Supremacy Tingju is a talisman cultivator. The legacy of alchemy is useless to him. So the two sects agreed that this legacy will be handed over to Guai sect. He put away the exorcism pill recipe on the table and continued. From now on, we have an agreement. Both sects will provide half of the spirit herbs for us to refine, and half of the pills we obtain will be given to Tai Yin sect. Lone Moon nodded. That was fair. Although this legacy belonged to Guai sect, they would naturally be the ones to cultivate it. Moreover, they would each get half of the spirit herbs. Because junior brother Tianji was the one who found this legacy, he will naturally be the one to inherit it. Only he can refine some of the precious pills. Tianyi said slowly, without much envy in his voice. That's why all these years, Tai Yin sect's pills have been refined by you. Originally, we agreed to train once every 10 years. And it's going to be the day of the transaction in 3 months. He didn't practice. Lone Moon was shocked. Yeah. He looked anxious. Junior brother Tian-yi found Yulwan a few days ago, and said that because he was in seclusion, he did not have time to refine the elixirs for trading. Yulwan had no choice but to find me. The more he spoke, the more anxious he became. This Tai Yin sect is the #1 immortal sect. Although we've always been on good terms, anyone would be angry if they suddenly changed their mind about something that had already been agreed upon. It would affect the relationship between the two sections. Who knows, they might even accuse us of keeping the elixir legacy for ourselves. What's more, ever since Guai sect had I Ching, a soul formation sword cultivator, Tai Yin sect had become increasingly wary of Guai sect. From time to time, they would find fault with them. Now that they had found out about this, they had to fight to the death. Then, what's this exorcism pill? Yulwan heard that Supremacy Tingju has a disciple that he dotes on very much. That disciple used to be his nephew, but his brain was accidentally injured by a fiendish cultivator, and he lost his mind. The exorcism pill can make one's heart clear and clear. Coincidentally, it can help him regain his consciousness. Moreover, this legacy was discovered by him and junior brother Tianji together. As long as he says the word, it doesn't matter if the pills are a little late. It's just that. He did not think that the exorcism pill would require 1,000 leaves spirit flowers. In the end, it was Tianji's fault again. Lone Moon recalled the pill recipe and continued asking, "There's something I don't understand. Since Supremacy Tianji gave this recipe to you, it means that he had no intention of keeping it to himself. Although he obtained the legacy, why didn't he just let the disciples of the sect refine it together? Perhaps they would be able to make it in time. Why did he have to give it all to Tianji alone? Brother Lone Moon, there's something you don't know, Tiani explained. Although there's nothing special about this recipe, I don't know why only junior brother Tianji can refine some of the pills in the legacy. It's the same for me. Even if I know the recipe, I still can't refine the pills I need. Lone Moon paused. That was strange. There was such a thing. Logically speaking, apart from some pill refining experience and techniques, the so-called legacy was mostly about various pill recipes. Tian-yi was a 10th level alchemist. His techniques and experience were definitely not a problem. He even had the correct pill recipe. Why was it that only Tianji could refine the pills? Unless Tianji had some special method to refine the pills that no one else could do. And this method affected the success rate of the pills. There were only a few factors that affected the success rate of the pills. The first was the ingredients. The second was the technique. The third was the level of fire. Haha, what a coincidence. No wonder Tianji wanted to imprison that fiendish cultivator for so many years. So that's what his dark fire was for. Using deviant fire to refine pills was of course different from refining pills with normal fire. Brother Lone Moon, do you have any idea about this 1,000 leaves spirit flower? Tiani could not help but ask again. Lone Moon glanced at him. Of course he had an idea. He had a whole bunch of them in his storage bag. They were all from radish that he stuffed into Shen Ying's storage bag. But he could not take them out just like that. First of all, he could not explain their origins. Second, radish had become an immortal for a long time. It was no longer an ordinary vegetation spirit. Its flower was already a top-grade immortal herb. If he used it to refine pills in the lower realm, who knew what would happen? That was why he could not take it out directly. So he smiled politely and said, I can only help you find out about this. I've never really seen this thing before. Even you can't do anything about it? Tianyi's expression darkened. He looked listless. Lone Moon glanced at him. After some thought, he could not help but remind him. There are so many spirit herbs in the world. Why must Brother Tian-yi use the 1,000 leaves spirit flower? According to what he knew, there was more than one way to refine the demon-breaking pill. He knew more than 10 different pill recipes. None of them required radish flower. Brother Lone Moon, you must be joking. He smiled bitterly. Apart from raising the grade of pills, the 1,000 leaves spirit flower is mainly because it is of the wood element. Its medicinal properties are mild, and it has the effect of calming one's mind. That's why it can be used to refine the demon-breaking pill. But apart from raising the grade of pills, the 1,000 leaves spirit flower is not the only spirit herb that has the effect of calming one's mind. Chapter 680. But that's what the recipe says. Tian-yi retorted subconsciously. The recipe only says that the demon-breaking pill needs the 1,000 leaves spirit flower. But it doesn't say that other spirit herbs can't produce the demon-breaking pill. Lone Moon pretended to guide him. What's more, be it the pill recipe or the legacy, weren't they all thought up by the predecessors? Since the predecessors could think of it, why should Brother Tian-yi, as a 10th level alchemist, be constrained by this? Tian-yi faltered, his entire being stunned. As if he had never thought of it that way before, shock, confusion, excitement and many other complex emotions flashed across his face. Finally he looked eager to try. That's right. Why hadn't he thought of it that way? The pill recipe was also thought up by others. Why couldn't he think of it? Since there was no 1,000 leaves spirit flower, what harm was there in trying something else? If he succeeded, he might even be able to improve the demon-breaking pill recipe. He stood up abruptly, as if he had thought of something. His face was full of excitement. Even the spirit chi around his body started to fluctuate. He said hurriedly, Thank you for the reminder, Brother Lone Moon. I have something to do. I have to leave first. With that said, he turned to leave the mountain. Just as he left the pavilion, he seemed to have thought of something, and turned back at the last minute, taking out bottles of pills. Oh yes, I almost forgot about the proper business. I prepared these for Brother Lone Moon long ago. Take them. If it's not enough, feel free to look for me. He seemed to have thought of something, and looked at Lone Moon with a hint of caution. Lone Moon faltered. He took a closer look at the pills. Golden condensation pills? Weren't these used for core formation? Why was he giving them to him? Although Zhuo Shuming is one step ahead of you. But in my heart, you are not inferior to anyone else. Given time, you will definitely surpass that fellow. With that said, he even made a fist to encourage him, then turned and flew away. Lone Moon, who was stuffed with a bunch of pills. So, he was afraid that Lone Moon would be upset when he saw Zhuo Shuming's core formation. So he specially brought these pills to comfort him? What the hell? Zhuo Shuming had successfully formed his core. And because of Xu Yi's words, he had a clear understanding of his sword Dao, and was even showing signs of developing sword intent. Even the sword qi around him became sharper and sharper. His cultivation speed was so fast that it was shocking. When he first joined Guiyi sect, he was only a disciple at Qi Refinement Stage 7. In addition, he had 3 spirit roots, but in just a few years, he was able to form his gold core. Even a genius with a heaven spirit root might not be able to achieve such a speed. Hence, Yuan came looking for I Ching again, expressing his hope that he would take in more disciples to raise the overall combat standards of Guiyi sect. Lone Moon had already thought of this, so he asked I Ching to agree. Anyway, he had already set up the sword array. There was no difference between throwing one person in and throwing a group of people in. The matter of choosing disciples was all handed over to Yuan to choose as he saw fit. Anyway, Nameless Peak was big enough. Considering Chef's unreliable personality, he didn't want any disciples to rush up and see a certain someone who stayed in the kitchen all day to affect his image. Thus, Lone Moon set up an array at the last minute, dividing Nameless Peak into 2 parts. The few of them would still stay on the peak. The bottom of the peak would be given to the disciples who entered the peak. They could build their own residences wherever they wanted. As for the matter of teaching, he directly pushed it to Zhuo Shuming. What he taught him back then, he would teach the others. If they couldn't learn it, they could just throw them into the sword array and be tortured by it. Towards I Ching? Decision. The sect master and the elders of the various peaks were very satisfied. Except for Tianyi. His heart ached for those spirit herbs. One must know that on Nameless Peak, there were spirit herbs everywhere. Once these disciples entered, those spirit herbs would have to be moved. Lone Moon and the others didn't think much of it. Instead, his heart ached so much that it bled. He delayed the matter of choosing disciples for a few months. He led the disciples of Danxia Mountain to rush day and night to buy all the spirit herbs. He spent money and effort to buy all the spirit herbs. Nameless Peak, which had always been quiet, was unprecedentedly lively. The entire Guiyi sect was bustling with activity, whereas the few people in charge were so free that they could only count their spirit stones. Even Zhuo Shuming made use of these few months to successfully consolidate his newly formed core cultivation. He even successfully passed the 2nd level of the sword array and rose to the 3rd level. When he came out, he felt like he was floating. The first thing he did was to discuss with Lone Moon. This time, I was able to form my core successfully because of Senior Sister Shu's guidance. Brother Lone Moon, do you think I should specially go and thank her? When is a suitable time to go? Lone Moon scanned him from head to toe and patted his shoulder with a conflicted expression. I say $2. Do you know what it means to leave a way out for others? Was he thinking that he didn't stab him enough last time, and was in a hurry to stab him again? Zhuo Shuming didn't understand what he meant. He said innocently, shouldn't I go? A moment later, he seemed to have thought of something and nodded hard. Brother Lone Moon is right. If I go just like that, it would be too insincere. I should prepare a generous gift. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Haha, as long as you're happy. Hopefully he wouldn't be beaten to death. Yet his eyes lit up. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. I must choose this gift well. It's a pity I don't know what Senior Sister Shu likes. He frowned. A moment later he said, oh yes, Lady Shin is also a girl. Why don't I go and ask her? She would definitely know. With that said, he turned and planned to go to the peak. Come back. Lone Moon reacted quickly and pulled him back. Why don't you grow a brain? Don't always hang around Shining if you have nothing to do. Why? He faltered. Nonsense. Are you blind? Can't you see that there's a vinegar bucket standing beside her? If you go to Shu Yi, you'll at most be beaten to death. If you go to Shening, believe it or not, she'll make you wish you were dead. Lone Moon rolled his eyes at him and sighed. Do you think that Shening will give you any other suggestions apart from eating? If you go and ask her, she'll only make you prepare a Manchu Han imperial feast. Then what should I do? His expression was troubled. After thinking for a moment, he still didn't know what to give. He could only say, why don't I go and find out what senior sister Shu likes? Then I'll go and thank her. He really intended to go. Lone Moon's expression darkened. But he didn't say anything else. For all he knew, he might really be able to help and anger the invader out. But he didn't expect that before Zhuo Shuming could think of a gift to thank her, Tianji would come knocking on his door first. What's more, he carried a sword and fought his way up. A mere golden core cultivator dares to plot against my disciple. Tianji's voice sounded before he arrived. The disciples who were practicing their swordplay at the foot of the mountain felt a strong gust of wind sweeping towards them. There were even several wind blades in the wind. They couldn't dodge in time, and were instantly blown away. And those wind blades directly attacked Zhuo Shuming, who was right in front. Chapter 681. Zhuo Shuming faltered, and instinctively raised his sword to defend himself. But he was suppressed by the suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator, and could not move at all. Those deadly wind blades were about to hit him. Lone Moon reached out to grab him, and dodged in a flash. In the next moment, there was a loud rumbling sound as the wind blades smashed into the ground, leaving a few meters deep crater. The entire nameless peak trembled, and even the newly built platform for practicing swordsmanship was instantly turned into a pile of rubble. Lone Moon's expression darkened as he sent a voice transmission to Chef on the mountain peak, while looking at the furious Tianji. Supremacy Tianji, why did you suddenly come and hurt my nameless peak disciple? Tianji became even angrier as he glared at Zhuo Shuming. Humph. Hurt him? A despicable person like him. If I don't kill him today, I won't be able to vent my anger. With that said, he unleashed his suppressive force towards everyone. Lone Moon and Zhuo Shuming were fine, but the people practicing here were all disciples who had just entered the peak. Many of them were rookies at the Qi refinement stage. How could they withstand the suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator? They all fell to their knees and spat out blood. Shit. Lone Moon was furious too, but he could not attack them directly. These disciples were about to collapse. An even stronger suppressive force suddenly came from above, pushing back Tianji's suppressive force. Chef arrived just in time. With a wave of his hand, a row of spirit swords flew towards Tianji. Tianji faltered and hurriedly dodged, but he could not do so in time. Half of his sleeve was cut in half. Tianji was furious. He looked up at I Ching, who suddenly appeared, his eyes burning. I Ching, are you protecting this evil creature? I Ching faltered and turned to Lone Moon questioningly. What was going on? Was this person crazy? Lone Moon shook his head, indicating that he was not sure either. Just as he was about to ask, Yulwan, who was on the main peak, also sensed the commotion and rushed over. The elders of the various peaks also rushed over. Even Tiani flew up. What's going on? Yulwan's face was filled with shock as he swept his gaze across the severely injured disciples on the ground, and hurriedly called for some disciples to check on their injuries. He was both anxious and angry. One must know that these people were the most suitable seedlings for sword cultivation that he had carefully selected. Guiyi sect only had core cultivators, and their battle power had always been pitifully low. Therefore, when they were outside, it was inevitable that they would be treated as pushovers by other sections. It wasn't easy for a sword cultivator supremacy to come. He had long wanted to change the situation in the sect, but he didn't expect that the first batch of disciples would be injured in just a few days. Junior brother Tianji, why are you doing this? Tianyi was a man with a strong sense of collective honor. Naturally, he understood Yulwan's intentions. He looked up at Tianji. It was obvious that he was the one who made the first move. Today, I only want to kill that sinister and vicious little bastard. He pointed at Zhuo Shuming and said coldly, You'd better not block me. Otherwise, don't blame me for not showing mercy. Zhuo Yuan was stunned. When did Uncle Master Tianji have a feud with a mere golden core disciple? Uncle Master, what did this disciple do? Do you really want to do this? What did I do? Tianji snorted and glared daggers at Zhuo. He said word by word. I also want to ask him, on the day of the competition, what did you do to little E? What made her become like that? Shui. Everyone was shocked. Thinking carefully, they indeed hadn't seen her for a long time. Senior Sister Shu? Zhuo was also stunned. He asked with some concern. What happened to her? You still dare to ask what happened? Tianji's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Ever since the competition, her condition has been worsening. Now, her meridians are all broken, and her golden core is showing signs of shattering. What? Little E is injured? Shu Yuan panicked. After all, she was his daughter. He would definitely be worried. No, I have to go and take a look. With that said, he left everyone behind and turned to fly away. Uncle Master Tianji, is there some misunderstanding? Yuan asked. How long had it been since the competition? He didn't see anything wrong with her? There's no misunderstanding. Tianji raised his sword and pointed at Zhuo. Little E was fine before, but after she fought with him, she has been unconscious ever since. If he didn't do anything, who else could it be? Everyone was taken aback, and their expressions changed. Everyone had clearly seen what had happened in the competition that day. Zhuo did not even make a move. He went through the tribulation and formed his core. What's more, Zhuo cultivation level was lower than his opponent's. Even if he wanted to do anything, he couldn't have done it in front of so many people. Uncle Master Tianji, we saw it with our own eyes. He didn't do anything. Yuan explained. I think Uncle Master is too worried. He has never been on good terms with my disciple. What's more, Little E kept calling out his name in anger when she was unconscious. I can't think of anyone else. Tianji refused to let the matter rest. He looked as if he would not rest until he killed Zhuo. I must kill him today. With that said, he activated his spirit chi again and conjured thousands of icicles. He shot them towards Zhuo, not caring if there was anyone else around. Uncle Master, Yuan exclaimed. He wanted to save I Ching, but he could not move because of Tianji's suppressive aura. I Ching frowned. He released all the sword chi in his body. There was a series of clanging sounds. The icicles shattered and fell. The sword chi filled the air, forcing Tianji to retreat several steps. With a twist of his hand, a spirit sword appeared in I Ching's hand. With some impatience, he said in a low voice, If you want to fight, come at me. If you want to fight, hurry up. He had to rush back to cook. He was only halfway through cooking. Tianji's expression contorted. He seemed to be really angry. He gripped the sword in his hand tightly. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Seeing that the two of them were about to fight, Yuan's heart trembled. He rushed out. Uncle Masters, please wait. It would be terrible if the two of them started fighting. Yuan hurriedly advised. Now is not the time to fight. Uncle Master Tianji, Shu Yi's condition is more important. Why don't we go and see what's wrong with her first? We can save her and figure out the reason. Tianji's expression darkened. He hesitated. After all, he had tried many ways to wake Shu Yi up. What more the others? Uncle Master Tian, he has always been good at medicine. Why don't we let him take a look? Yuan immediately added. Tianyi nodded. Tianji glared at Zhuo again. Then he kept his sword and turned to fly towards Danxia Mountain. Everyone looked at each other and flew down as well. Chapter 682. Danxia Peak was different from the other peaks. It was actually a double peak. Tianyi and Tianji were both on this peak. Although Tianyi was the peak lord, he and his disciples actually lived on the left side of the floating peak. Tianji lived on the right side. Because he had not accepted any other disciples apart from Shu Yi, the peak seemed a little deserted. At the peak of the mountain, there was a single palace. Everyone followed Tianji to the peak and entered the palace. They headed straight for the back palace. Lone Moon and the others walked at the back. Just as they entered the inner palace, they suddenly stopped. Chef! This aura! He subconsciously sent a voice transmission to the person beside him. I Ching nodded. I see it too. Lone Moon frowned. Let's go in and take a look first. He followed, but the deeper they went, the thicker the aura became. When they reached a room in the back palace, the entire courtyard was already filled with that aura. It was so thick that they could not breathe. Just as everyone was about to push the door open. Wait! Lone Moon called out. He stepped forward and pulled Yuluan back. I Ching also formed an array. White light flashed under his feet. A huge array appeared under their feet. A translucent shield rose up and surrounded all the elders. This is... Yuluan hesitated. Why did they suddenly set up a defensive array? Tianji, who was at the front, also turned to look at them. His expression turned cold. He glared at I Ching. What are you doing? I Ching ignored him. He only looked at everyone and explained in a low voice. There's something else in the house. Everyone stared blankly at him. Before they could ask, Tianji panicked. With a furious expression he said, I Ching, what do you mean by this? This is little Yi's room. Are you suspecting that I'm up to something? I Ching ignored him. Instead, he directly summoned a spirit sword. Take a look and you'll know. With that said, he waved his hand. What are you doing? Tianji was shocked. All he saw was a beam of sword chi flying in front of him. The next moment he heard a loud crash. A section of the room was cut off. The roof collapsed. I Ching you. Tianji was furious. Just as he was about to attack, he heard a loud bang. A figure was thrown out of the room and landed heavily in the courtyard. That person was covered in blood and had a weak aura. The robe he was wearing was somewhat familiar. This is Elder Shu. An elder recognized the person on the ground and exclaimed, wasn't this Taoist Master Shu Yuan, who was in a hurry to see his daughter? Why did it become like this? Before they could be surprised, the next moment, clouds of pitch-black gas suddenly surged out of the collapsed room in front of them, rushing toward them. Just as it was about to engulf everyone, the defensive formation under their feet lit up and instantly blocked the black gas outside. However, the black gas outside had already spread to the entire courtyard. Wherever the black gas passed through, the flowers in the courtyard instantly withered. Even the collapsed beams and tiles cracked and weathered inch by inch, turning into a pile of sand in an instant. This is demonic energy. Someone exclaimed. They finally recognized what the black chi was and felt a chill in their hearts. Fortunately, Supremacy I Ching had set up a defense array in advance. Otherwise, they would not be able to withstand the demonic chi even if it touched them. But why was there demonic energy here? That's Senior Sister Shui. Zhou Shuming's eyes suddenly widened as he looked in front of him in disbelief. Everyone was stunned. They subconsciously looked up and realized that there was a person floating in the air amidst the thick demonic energy. She was wearing the Dharma robe of a personal disciple of Guiyi sect. It was Shu Yi, whom Tianji had said was seriously injured and unconscious. However, her entire body was now enveloped in demonic chi. Her originally delicate and pretty face was now covered in black demonic runes like a spider web. Her eyes were crimson red, as if she had lost her mind. Waves of black chi were continuously being emitted from her body. This demonic energy is coming from her body. Yuluan was shocked, his face full of disbelief. There was more and more demonic energy around them. It seemed to be spreading towards the entire Guiyi sect. Little E, Tianji was also shocked. As if recalling something, a trace of guilt flashed across his face. He immediately flew out, as if trying to stop the person in the air. Uncle Master, don't! Yuluan wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Tianji had already rushed out. Almost at the same time, the Dharma robe on his body was corroded by the demonic energy. With a few sizzling sounds, his skin was burned. Tianji's expression changed, but he still rushed towards Shu Yi, wanting to stop her. Shu Yi suddenly raised her hand and waved. A wave of demonic energy shot towards Tianji. Instantly he was slapped back. It was obvious that she had not woken up yet. Lone Moon glanced at Chef. He was about to ask him to do it. Shu Yi's system was also anxious. It started to make a small announcement. Host, hurry and wake up. Don't let the demonic energy consume your mind. Host! Host! Then there was a sizzling sound. A tiny bolt of lightning flashed across Shu Yi's body. Shu Yi's originally expressionless face contorted. A trace of pain flashed across her face. Her bloodshot eyes darkened. Slowly she regained consciousness. System? A trace of confusion flashed across Shu Yi's eyes. Before she could sort out the situation around her, she saw Zhou Shuming in the array formation. Her pupil shrank. What happened during the competition flashed across her mind. Anger surged out of her. Her eyes lit up with red light again. Murderous intent filled the air. Zhou Shuming! She gritted her teeth as she shouted his name. It was as if she wanted to eat him alive. Even the demonic energy around her suddenly increased. She waved her hand and directed the demonic energy around her to attack him. The demonic energy that had been moving around seemed to have received an order. It turned into thousands of black sharp blades and attacked the center. The defensive array beneath everyone's feet shattered, and their hearts went cold. Seeing that the black chi was about to surge towards them, I Ching turned his hand, and a ball of red flame burst out from his body and rushed towards the demonic chi. There was a sizzling sound. The demonic chi dissipated, as if it had met its natural enemy. The demonic chi retreated bit by bit. The entire courtyard was a fiery red. In less than 2 breaths' time, the demonic chi disappeared completely. It pounced towards the source of the flames floating in the air. Shu Yi instantly let out a scream, but found that he couldn't escape the flames at all. A piercing pain came from all over his body, and he didn't care whether others could hear him or not. He shouted madly, "System, save me!" Ding! Encountered an unknown error. Unable to defend against this kind of flames. Longman's expression darkened. I Ching was the manager. Of course this intruder could not cut off his fire system. He hurriedly tugged at the person beside him to remind him. Chef. The system had not left its host's body yet. Only then did Chef retract his palm, and the flames around Shu Yi's body receded. Chapter 683. Little E. Tianji took the opportunity to fly out and catch the dying Shu Yi, but he did not stop and flew out on his sword. Uncle Master Tianji, Yu Yuan reacted and was about to stop him when Tianji suddenly turned back and threw a Dharma artifact at him. But it was not aimed at Yuan, but at Zhou Shuming, who was in the crowd. Tianji moved too fast. Just as the Dharma artifact was about to hit Zhou Shuming, Chef turned his hand and slashed at it, hitting the Dharma artifact. Tianji, who was in midair, took the opportunity to conjure some sort of seal. In a flash he disappeared into thin air. Everyone in the courtyard was stunned. They had not recovered from what happened just now. After a while, Yuan asked, "Uncle Master I Ching, Shu Yi just..." She turned into a demon. I Ching replied coldly, "Everyone." Yuan and the elders could not react to the fact that Shu Yi had turned into a demon. But the truth was right in front of them. The demonic chi in the courtyard that day could not be faked. They just did not understand how a good person could turn into a demon just like that. And she even injured Elder Shu Yuan. No matter what, he was Shu Yi's father. Now not only were his meridians broken, even his cultivation level dropped from late-stage nascent soul to early-stage nascent soul. He had not woken up yet. And supremacy Tianji, he was a soul formation supremacy in the sect. It was normal for him to protect his own disciple. But he did not even explain, and just ran away with Shu Yi. They could not understand this. No matter how much he doted on his disciple, there was no need to betray the sect. Until Lone Moon accidentally revealed to everyone that the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi had escaped from the sect, and did not come looking for them on purpose. And they even found a secret room on Danxia Mountain. There were indeed traces of fiendish cultivators inside. Everyone was enlightened. Looks like Tianji had turned into a demon long ago. Tianyi let out a long sigh. No wonder junior brother Ian would. He didn't continue, but everyone understood what he meant. Tianji had a cold personality. He did not have a good relationship with the people in the sect. Perfected Ian was one of the few people in the sect who was on good terms with Tianji. Occasionally, he would go to Danxia Mountain. He must have found out something he shouldn't have. That was why he was killed by Tianji. No wonder they hadn't found the murderer after so long. No wonder Injinren didn't even have a chance to ask for help, and could only self-destruct his nascent soul. The more everyone thought about it, the more shocked they became. Was Tianji's doing as well? Did he have a plan in mind when he brought them to see Shu Yi? He thought of Shu Yuan, who had yet to wake up, and had almost lost his nascent soul cultivation. If he could even lay his hands on his own father, what more them? If they had entered the house that day. Thinking of this, everyone shuddered. Fortunately, Uncle Master I Ching had detected it in advance. Otherwise, they would have been completely wiped out. Lone Moon didn't say anything. He had to admit that although they were heading in the right direction, they were thinking too much. Tianji did not become a demon. Shu Yi was the only one who became a demon. He left because he was afraid that the fact that he imprisoned a fiendish cultivator and killed an elder of the sect would be exposed. That was why he ran away with them. Shening had sealed the demonic qi in Zhuo Shuming's body, and the demonic seed in Shu Yi's body. In order to frame Zhuo Shuming, Shu Yi released it without hesitation. That caused the demonic seed to awaken and turn her into a demon. And the reason she had been unconscious for so many days was because the demonic qi in her body was slowly eating away at her original spirit qi. That meant that she was actually turning into a demon. Lone Moon was a little confused about this. When Shening said that the two seals were connected, they didn't think much of it. After all, Shu Yi had the system. The demonic seed was also sealed by the system. If it could seal it once, it could naturally seal it a second time. But who would have thought that the system would be so useless? It didn't even notice that the demonic seed had already escaped. It even made Shu Yi turn into a demon. One must know that the so-called demonic seed was different from demonic qi. The demonic seed was the embodiment of pure evil thoughts of the demon race. It also carried a part of the demon's soul that gave birth to the demonic seed. Once it entered the body, it would merge with the original soul until the other party completely turned into a demon. Back then, Celestial Emperor Chun Go wanted to get rid of the demonic seed in his body. He had to split a part of his soul and use the power of reincarnation to cleanse the demonic qi, much less Shu Yi, a golden core cultivator. So the result of the system's momentary lapse was that Shu Yi completely turned into a demon. No wonder the parenting system said that this 001 was a system that was about to be eliminated. Sect Master, what do you think about this? All the elders looked at Yu Luan with lingering fear. This is a serious matter. The demonic qi is really too dangerous. Yu Luan's face turned green. Then he said in a low voice, although it's not good for Guei sect's matters to spread, we have to take precautions. We need to inform the various immortal sects as soon as possible and tell them the reason behind this. A fiendish cultivator with demonic qi and a soul formation cultivator who turned into a demon. This was a huge threat to the entire immortal sections. Everyone nodded in agreement. So in an instant, Shu Yi and Tianji turned from soul formation supremacies and genius disciples into evil demonic cultivators who betrayed the immortal sections. They were despised and hunted down by the entire immortal sections. Shu Yi originally wanted to frame Zhuo Shuming and make him a fiendish cultivator that everyone wanted to kill. But she didn't expect things to turn around. Zhuo Shuming was still a genius cultivator, while she became the one that everyone wanted to kill. Lone Moon wondered how she would react when she completely regained her senses. It would be best if she added tens of points of resentment. Lone Moon pinched his fingers and calculated. If the enemy continued to send people over like this, perhaps this matter would be settled very soon. This was the easiest batch of invaders he had ever seen. Apart from teaching a slightly stupid sword cultivator, it was basically an easy win. Ever since Shu Yi and Tianji escaped from Guei sect, there was no more news of them. He had to admit that it was a little boring without the system's broadcast. So boring that Lone Moon couldn't help but play landlord with the parenting system. Zhuo Shuming, on the other hand, sighed for a long while, as if he couldn't accept it. Senior sister Shu, who was giving him pointers just a moment ago, turned into a fiendish cultivator the next moment. Lone Moon solemnly said to him. 2 pieces. The most important thing to do as a person is to have some king sense, understand? Zhou Shuming was stunned for a long time and didn't understand. Brother Lone Moon's words are so profound. What could he do if he didn't understand at all? Lone Moon sighed. He could not be bothered to continue mocking him. He turned around and kicked him into the sword array. Then he increased the intensity of the training. If the training in the past was like a devil's training, then it was already hellish now. Shu Yi's target had always been Zhou Shuming. One day, she would come knocking on his door. Now that she was already a demon, although she still had a mortal body, she was already equivalent to half a demon. Her battle strength had increased by several levels, while Zhou Shuming was still a weak golden core cultivator. If she really came knocking on his door, he would be a piece of cake. If he didn't make use of the time to cultivate now, when would he? Chapter 684. Lone Moon felt that as an invader with a mission at that, Shu Yi would not keep a low profile. There was no news now. Perhaps it was because she had yet to fully control the demonic qi in her body, and it would come out on its own soon. However, before she could make a move, Tian-Yi had some unexpected gains a few years later. Tian-Yi was already at the late stage of soul formation, but he had been stuck at the last step, unable to advance. Lone Moon's casual advice the last time seemed to have given Tian-Yi a new direction. He directly threw himself into modifying elixirs. Perhaps he was really talented in refining elixirs. Not only did he really modify the demon-breaking pill, but he also started to study other heaven-grade elixir recipes. As time went by, he gained quite a bit. The entire Danxia mountain would face a few pill tribulations from time to time, or there would be a few cauldrons exploding. Yet Tian-Yi got more and more excited the more he practiced. His alchemy skills improved by leaps and bounds. He was a core cultivator. Apart from normal cultivation, core cultivators could also cultivate through the pill mist formed when refining elixirs. Tian-Yi refined elixirs so crazily, his cultivation naturally improved as well. And it was a huge improvement. Hence he was about to ascend. It was still early in the morning. As Tian-Yi refined a cauldron of heaven-grade elixirs, the sky suddenly darkened. A huge bolt of lightning the likes of which no one in Gui sect had ever seen before suddenly descended from the sky. Then, it went around Nameless Peak above, and landed on Danxia Peak below with a loud boom. In an instant, Tian-Yi's cave abode, and a few other palaces beside it were smashed into pieces. Before anyone could react, the entire sect's protective mountain array was suddenly activated, but it still could not block the vast power of heaven and earth. Sect Master Yuan hurriedly flew over from the main peak. Only then did he see that frighteningly thick bolt of lightning, and the black thunderclouds in the sky. Could this be? Yuan did not dare to believe his eyes. It's the lightning tribulation of ascension. I Ching and Lone Moon, who just happened to be moving the spirit herbs over, looked at the sky together, then replied with certainty. Ascension? Yuan was shocked, his expression slightly dazed. Could the person in the lightning be Uncle Master Tian-Yi? Yuan was even more astonished, but his legs couldn't help but turn to jelly under the immense might of the heavens and earth. He felt as if he would be injured by the pressure in the air, even if he took another look. Tian-Yi's lightning tribulation came too quickly. Moreover, it was early in the morning, and the sky was not completely bright. That was why he did not notice it immediately. Lone Moon subconsciously wanted to conjure a seal to set up an array, so that the others would not be affected. After all, this was the Ascension lightning tribulation. After some thought, he nudged Chef beside him. You do it. I Ching paused. Why? It's safer if you set it up, he added. After all, Chef was the boss of the one who struck the lightning bolt. Didn't he see that the heavenly Tao even avoided Nameless Peak? I Ching's face darkened, but he still turned around and flew out to set up the array. In a short while, a white array appeared around the pill peak. Even the protective mountain array above their heads opened up a big hole from the top to facilitate the heavenly thunder. Yuan also reacted, and hurriedly went down to arrange for the disciples of Danxia Mountain to evacuate while telling the disciples of the other peaks to stay away. This was the Ascension Lightning Tribulation. It was different from other things. Disciples with lower cultivation levels might be suppressed by the vast pressure of heaven and earth just by looking at it. That would affect their cultivation. What's more, it was just the first mental demon tribulation. The lightning tribulation later on would only get stronger and stronger. The two of them were very fast. By the time I Ching was done setting up the array, Yuan had already evacuated most of the people. And Tian-yi had also successfully passed the mental demon tribulation. The following lightning bolts struck one after another, illuminating Gui-yi sect in a snow-white light. The entire Danxia mountain was struck by the lightning bolts at a speed visible to the naked eye. Inch by inch, it turned into ashes. In less than 20 bolts of lightning, it was already half a length shorter. What was amazing was that although the lightning bolts were fierce, no matter how they struck, not a single bit of the lightning pressure leaked outside of Danxia Mountain. It was as if they were targeted at a fixed point. The lightning bolts were extremely accurate and only aimed at Tian-yi's head. Tian-yi, who was sitting in the middle, was using all his strength to resist the lightning tribulation. Although he had a feeling these few days that the Ascension Lightning Tribulation was about to arrive. That was why he was refining pills like crazy to accumulate some spirit chi, so that he could pass the lightning tribulation in one go. But he did not expect to realize that the Ascension Lightning Tribulation was not as simple as he thought it would be. The bolts of lightning seemed to want to split his entire body apart. The pain was comparable to a heart-wrenching, soul-crushing, and soul-shattering pain. He could only try his best to absorb the violent spirit chi around him and use the gaps between the lightning bolts to heal his injuries. The entire process was undoubtedly a complete transformation. But he was indeed a complete transformation. The so-called Ascension Lightning Tribulation was originally a process for those who were attempting to ascend to immortality, to shed their mortal bodies and grow immortal bones. And those who were going through the tribulation could only endure it. Tian-yi was already covered in blood, but he still gritted his teeth and persevered. There were already faint signs of his immortal bones growing on his body. Until the last bolt of lightning struck, Tian-yi used the last bit of spirit chi in his body to forcibly resist the lightning tribulation. The suffocating spiritual pressure in the surroundings became more and more solid. In an instant, it condensed into immortal chi and began to surge wildly into Tian-yi's body, helping him to grow new immortal bones and at the same time, healing his injuries. The bloody man who was on the verge of death, just a moment ago, was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the suppressive force on his body had completely changed. Tian-yi heaved a sigh of relief. Only then did he feel a sense of success. At the same time, a golden ray of light broke through the layers of thunder clouds and descended from the sky, directly hitting his body. The world that was originally incomparably familiar to him suddenly felt a sense of rejection. Even his body felt light, and he could not help but fly towards the sky. Success! Uncle Master Tian-yi is about to ascend. Yuan was overjoyed, and could not help but blurt out. He was both excited and emotional. It has been tens of thousands of years since anyone has successfully ascended here. I did not expect it to be Uncle Master Tian-yi. This is great. Sensing that the danger had passed, the disciples all came out one after another. They looked at the descending heavenly light with excitement and surprise. Tian-yi's figure was slowly flying towards the sky along with the light. He looked completely different. His entire body was filled with faint white immortal chi. Just as he was about to fly into the realm gate above, he seemed to have thought of something. His figure paused, and he suddenly turned around, wanting to return. But because he was not very familiar with the use of immortal chi, he did not manage to restrain the power of the heavenly light. He was like a duck that could not swim. He waved his hand in the air a few times. Only then did he slowly descend halfway. But he still could not leave that heavenly light. He could only wave his hand and shout in this direction. Brother Lone Moon, is Brother Lone Moon there? For a moment, the gazes of the entire sect were all fixed on Lone Moon. Yet Tian-yi's shout became louder and louder. He waved his hand at him forcefully. Brother Lone Moon, hurry, come over here for a moment. I have something to tell you. Lone Moon. Damn it. Why do you have something to tell me? It's not like you don't have disciples. Underscore. Chapter 685. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He had no choice but to fly over under the loving gaze of the entire sect. What's the matter? Brother Lone Moon. Tiani glanced at him, and suddenly reached out to take out the storage bag by his side. The storage ring on his hand, along with the defensive Dharma artifact hairpin on his head, everything that could be used on him was taken off. Then, she shoved everything into his hands, and said with a serious look on her face, I thought that these might be useless once we reach the upper realm, so I gave them all to you. Brother Lone Moon, your aptitude far exceeds mine. You will definitely ascend successfully. Old friend, I will wait for your good news up there. Lone Moon. What's with this feeling of being taken care of? But spirit stones that were delivered to his doorstep. It would be a waste not to take them. Carat Omega Carat. Thank you, Brother Tian. We're all brothers, there's no need to be so polite. He waved his hand and said sincerely, I can ascend thanks to your advice that day. These things are nothing. He wanted to say more, but the pull from the realm gate was getting stronger. He could only say hurriedly, I have to go take care, Brother Lone Moon. With that said, he flew up. Lone Moon looked at the pile of things in his hand, his expression darkened. He sighed and took out a white jade token and threw it over. Take this. Tiani caught it reflexively. Upon closer inspection, it was just an ordinary jade token. It was neither a Dharma artifact nor a talisman. There were 2 words engraved on both sides. On one side was Bo-Si, and on the other side was invincible. This is. Tiani was stunned. You'll know when you get up. Lone Moon had no intention of explaining, and just waved his hand. In the next moment, Tiani was already pulled up by the heavenly light, and disappeared in the golden light in the sky. In the next moment, the golden light dispersed and turned into a spirit rain that fell down. All the disciples looked delighted and sat down one by one. They began to absorb this rare rich spirit chi, and realized the remaining trace of heavenly Tao in the sky. Even the nascent soul elders sat down. One must know that in tens of thousands of years, there had not been a cultivator who ascended. This was a rare opportunity. Lone Moon also flew back and met I Ching's probing gaze. What are you looking at? Lone Moon glared at him. Chef narrowed his eyes. You just gave him a disciple token of invincible sect. So what if I am? Lone Moon casually stuffed the things in his hands back into his storage bag. She had at least paid the school fees. Oh, Chef narrowed his eyes and looked at him. Didn't they say that the invincible sect was too difficult to raise, and that they would no longer accept people? Oh, your sister. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Get rid of those disgusting wavy lines. Don't learn blindly from Shening. Yu Hong said that the sex elixir business is getting bigger and bigger and Boss cannot just rely on Boss Lon and Spirit Chi. Boss. What's more, Boss Lon still has to refine weapons, create talismans, water Radish, and now that Radish's unlucky son is here, he also has to occasionally guide the disciples in their cultivation. Lone Moon counted off the items. It was hard to do business these days, okay? What else? He rolled his eyes. Do you want to go back and help practice? Chef stiffened and changed the topic seriously. Oh yes, I remembered that I cooked less porridge for breakfast. Master must not be full. Father Neo, I'll go back first. Master was not here. He could not afford to offend him. Small fry. I Ching deeply felt that he was still suitable to be the chef. He turned around and wanted to fly back to Nameless Peak. Suddenly, a loud rumble came from the foot of the mountain. The entire Gui sect shook. The great protective array that was still enveloping the sky suddenly darkened. The 8 spiritual swords that were originally surrounding the sect, with a few cracking sounds, broke into pieces. Someone destroyed the formation core. I Ching's face darkened. He turned to look at the mountain gate on the right. Someone must have snuck in when he was going through the tribulation. Yu Huan also woke up from his meditation. Uncle Master I Ching, this. Just as he was about to ask, he suddenly heard a commotion coming from the foot of the mountain. He could faintly feel a large amount of evil chi surging into Guiyi sect. A disciple hurriedly flew up. Sect Master. The disciple reported anxiously. Reporting to Sect Master. A large number of devil cultivators suddenly appeared at the foot of the mountain. They are about to break through the mountain gate and barge in. Now, Yul Wan's expression changed as he instantly understood what was going on. Uncle Master Tian-yi had just descended. Although this was a good thing, Guiyi sect had one less soul formation cultivator. In addition, Tianji had defected a few years ago. Guiyi sect only had one soul formation cultivator left. These fiendish cultivators definitely wanted to take down Guiyi sect before they recovered. Can you tell where these fiendish cultivators came from? He asked in a low voice. Since they dared to attack Guiyi sect, there must be quite a number of them. They must be from the fiendish sect. It's the heavenly demon sect. The disciple answered with certainty. Heavenly demonic sect. Yul Wan was stunned. We have no enmity with them, why would they attack our sect? The more he thought about it, the more anxious he became. While thinking, he anxiously arranged. Go inform the 3 peak masters of the 3 upper peaks, and all the nascent soul-perfected ones to follow me to meet the enemy. The other peak lords were guarding the sect to prevent any accidents. Tell them to focus on the eye of the great mountain guarding formation. Yes. The disciple hurriedly turned and went to inform them. Yul Wan then looked at I Ching and said, Uncle Master, let's go. I Ching understood what he meant. He immediately turned and flew in the direction of the mountain gate. Yul Wan's heart calmed down, and he immediately followed. Lone Moon was bored, so he followed as well. The few of them had yet to reach the mountain gate when they saw a large patch of evil chi occupying the forest in front of the mountain gate. The other side seemed to have already made a move. The disciples at the mountain gate were heavily injured. They were barely hanging on by relying on the array formation at the gate. That array formation was left behind by the founding patriarch of Guiyi sect. It was very difficult for cultivators below the soul formation stage to break through it. Before Yul Wan could heave a sigh of relief, he heard a loud boom. He saw the array stone at the mountain gate shatter. Cracks appeared on the array formation at the gate. Then a familiar suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator swept over. This suppressive force is Tianji. Yul Wan was stunned. His face was full of disbelief. As if recalling something, his face turned pale. Heavenly demonic sect. So it's him? What do you mean, sect master? Lone Moon's expression darkened. Actually, he and Chef already knew that the person leading the group was Tianji. But looking at Yul Wan's expression, he seemed to know something. Yul Wan's expression became even uglier. His brows seemed to be knitted together. Then he explained, I heard that a while ago, the sect master of Heavenly Demonic Sect was suddenly killed by someone. Since then, Heavenly Demonic Sect has changed masters. What's more, that new sect master led Heavenly Demonic Sect to conquer several fiendish cultivation sections. There are signs of them unifying the demonic sections. I just didn't expect that person to actually be Tianji. He thought that Guiyi sect had never mistreated this soul formation supremacy, but he didn't expect that not only would he join the demonic sects and betray them, but after unifying the demonic sects, the first thing he did was to attack Guiyi sect. This made Yul Wan feel somewhat bitterly disappointed. The array formation at the mountain gate had already been completely broken. The person who appeared at the gate was indeed Tianji. Chapter 686. Tianji, Guiyi sect has treated you well. Why did you gather fiendish cultivators to attack us? Yul Wan could not help but ask with a pained expression. He really wanted to know. Tianji snorted. He did not feel that there was anything wrong with his actions. Instead, he said with hatred, Yul Wan, now that things have come to this, why do you have to continue acting in front of me? Do you really think I don't know that you've been unhappy with me for a long time? Every day, you plan to get rid of me. Didn't you invite this sword cultivator into the sect to force me to leave? With that said, he glared at I Ching. What did you say? Yul Wan's expression was one of disbelief. He had never thought that Tianji would think this way. Tianji continued to speak with conviction. You forced me to do all this. I'm here today to seek justice. Gui sect deserves to suffer such a fate. You. Yuan was so angry that he could not speak. He did not think that Tianji would twist the truth like this. Lo Moon frowned. Indeed, a person whose thoughts were already crooked. Even if he did something like betraying his master and destroying his ancestors, he had many reasons to be punished. Even if, as he said, there were people in the sect who were unhappy with him, no one forced him to betray and become a fiend. Why bother with all this nonsense? Chef, who was at the side, calculated the time it took to cook. With a turn of his hand, he summoned his spirit sword. His expression darkened. Let's do it. They were in a rush to cook. If they could do it, what was the point of babbling? Tianji frowned. A hint of fear flashed across his face. But he did not face I Ching alone. Instead, he waved his hand behind him and instructed, "Go. Take down Gui sect." "Yes, sect master." The eyes of the fiendish cultivators beside him lit up. They responded in unison. As if they had been waiting for a long time, they immediately swarmed forward. The dermic artifacts in their hands attacked together. They covered the sky. Some of the fiendish cultivators even flew up into the sky. They seemed to want to be the first to enter the sect and snatch the credit. The evil aura belonging to the fiendish cultivators permeated the entire Gui sect. Even the surrounding spirit chi retreated. At a glance, there were actually tens of thousands of fiendish cultivators. There were quite a number of nascent soul cultivators. They looked no less than the perfected ones in the sect. Yuan's heart tightened. He panicked. He hurriedly summoned his dermic artifacts and appeared in front of the heavily injured disciples. He blocked them and shouted, "We cannot let the fiendish cultivators enter the sect. All disciples, follow me and form an array." As he spoke, he turned to look at Lone Moon. Perhaps he remembered Yi who had just ascended. "Little friend Lone Moon Tian. Tianji," he said. "No need." Lone Moon squeezed the fan in his hand and replied with a carefree expression. "Huh." Yuan paused and was about to persuade him. "You Tian Shan you Tian you. Tian you. GG. A you Tian ui." Yuan was only brushed by the sword chi. His legs gave way. He barely managed to stabilize himself before he fell to his knees. Not to mention the fiendish cultivators who were facing this sword chi. The people who were about to fly toward Gui sect fell to the ground like dumplings. They all fell to the ground like dumplings. They could not move, as if they were under some kind of heavy pressure. Because they were in such a rush, some of them fell to the ground screaming. Even Tianji lost his balance. He coughed and spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at I Ching in disbelief. This is impossible. They were both late-stage soul formation cultivators. Why did I Ching have such a terrifying sword chi? He could not even resist. I Ching could not be bothered with him. He turned the sword in his hand. Instantly, a sky full of spirit swords appeared. With a few swooshes, they fell in front of the mountain gate like rain. Every time a sword fell, a gust of wind blew. It was as if thousands of invisible swords were attacking the fiendish cultivators on the ground. For a moment, screams could be heard. Those with high cultivation were able to withstand the sword chi that filled the sky and dodge some. Those with low cultivation were not so lucky, and were directly swept away by the sword chi, losing all signs of life. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the fiendish cultivators were gone. Not to mention the fiendish cultivators. Even Yuan could not react. He stared at the fiendish cultivators lying on the ground. All the mountain masters brought their disciples and rushed over to help. "Sect master, the fiendish cultivators are attacking." Before they could finish speaking, they saw the tragic scene in front of the mountain gate. Everyone. The battle between the righteous and fiendish cultivators had begun. Oh, the battle between the righteous and fiendish cultivators had ended. This was definitely the fastest battle they had ever seen. On the other side, I Ching was already walking towards Tianji. With every step he took, the surrounding sword chi became heavier. There were more dumplings on the ground. Even the fiendish cultivators who were far away from the mountain gate took the opportunity to escape. People of the fiendish sect treasured their lives the most. They were originally a group of people. Naturally, they did not care about morality. In addition, the heavenly demon sect had only just unified the fiendish sect. There were not many who were truly loyal to Tianji. Lone Moon walked towards Tianji. He raised his hand and sent a sword chi towards his dantian. Instantly, it dispersed all the spirit chi in his body and sealed all his meridians. Then he picked Tianji up and dragged him back like a sack. Then, he threw him to Sect Master Yuan. Do whatever you want with him. Trouble. Yuan was stunned. Then he hurriedly caught Tianji. Looking at the supremacy who was supposed to be respected by everyone in the sect, he felt complicated. Thinking of what Tianji said earlier, his expression darkened. Yet Tianji did not look the least bit remorseful. As if thinking of something, he laughed out loud. Ha ha ha. Do you really think that with a soul formation sword cultivator, Gui sect would have nothing to worry about? What do you mean? Yuan was shocked. He understood what Tianji was implying. Only a bunch of idiots like you would treat a sword cultivator of unknown origins like him. He laughed louder and louder. Do you really believe that he will always side with Gui sect? Tianji. Before Yuan could speak, the nascent soul elder beside him could not help but scold him. You were the one who betrayed the sect with impure intentions. Don't think that others will be as filthy as you. Tianji snorted. He looked at I Ching with a venomous gaze. If you did not lead the wolf into the house to suppress me, I would not have become like this. You all reap what you sow. So does he. Everyone was even angrier. They were angry at his stubbornness. Yuan, however, frowned and stepped forward. Apart from attacking the sect, what else did you do? Tianji suddenly laughed sinisterly. He said smugly, I dared to come here because I was fully prepared. Of course you've won, haven't you? No. This is just the beginning. Loman's expression darkened. He scanned the surroundings and then reacted. Shui is not here. Everyone was shocked. They did not notice earlier. Now that they thought about it, Tianji treated that disciple so well. He would not have not brought her with him. Unless he had other motives. Have you finally realized? Tianji laughed even more happily. There was a hint of madness in his eyes. None of you can escape. All of you must die. Loman's heart sank. Zhua Shuming. He exchanged a look with I Ching. Both of them flashed at the same time and flew towards Nameless Peak. Chapter 687. I Ching and Lone Moon flew very fast. They arrived at Nameless Peak in the blink of an eye. Before he landed on the ground, he heard a loud bang, and the whole floating peak shook for a while. A fine white light rose up, faintly bringing with it some scattered sword chi that had exploded. It's a sword array. Lone Moon was shocked. Only then did he remember that when they came out, 2 bucks Zwa was in the sword array. The two of them took a closer look. Indeed, the 10-level sword array that Lone Moon had set up back then had already been destroyed by someone. The powerful impact had caused more than half of the entire floating peak to collapse, and the sword chi within the array was flowing everywhere. And at the bottom of the peak, clouds of black demonic chi faintly appeared. In the middle was a figure covered in blood, holding on with his sword. It looked like the surrounding demonic chi was going to swallow him in the next moment. It was 2 bucks Zwa. Lone Moon was shocked. He could not care less about hiding his cultivation. The fan in his hand turned into a sword. With a wave of his hand, he split the demonic chi around him, turned into spirit chi to entangle the person below, and directly pulled him out of the clouds of demonic chi. I Ching's movements were also very fast. Almost at the same time Lone Moon made his move, he activated the true phoenix fire. Along with his sword chi, it burned towards the demonic chi below. The demonic chi was instantly forced back by the flames, shrinking back, slowly revealing Shu Yi's figure behind. Hey, are you still alive? Lone Moon patted 2 bucks Zwa, who was already covered in blood, and directly sent a bit of immortal chi over, activating Scoop's scale in his body. In a short while, the immortal chi automatically began to circulate throughout his body. 2 bucks Zwa's injuries also began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. His eyes then slowly focused, looking at the person in front of him. Brother. Lone Moon. Lone Moon then heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily they arrived in time. Uncle Master I Ching. Yuan and the rest of the elders rushed over as well. Taking a look at the tragic scene, they lifted their heads to look at Shu Yi and were instantly stunned, not daring to recognize him. Shu Yi. She was no longer as sensible and well-behaved as she used to be. Perhaps it was because of the influence of the devil Qi, but her face was covered with hideous devil scars. From time to time, devil Qi would seep out from her body. She no longer looked like a cultivator, but had completely turned into a half-devil, looking extremely terrifying. Even if one were to look at it from afar, they would feel a chill crawling into their hearts. You again? Shui raised her head and glared at Yi Qing. She seemed to be angry that she did not manage to kill Zhou Shuming in one go. But when she thought of the deviant fire just now, she started to feel wary. Ding! Warning, hunt failed. Original owner's resentment has reached 95. The mission will fail if it reaches 100. The familiar system announcement sounded again. Shut up. I know. Shu Yi was flustered and exasperated. If not for Zhou Shuming hiding in that sword array, I wouldn't have wasted so much time. He would have died long ago. What should I do now, host? The 001 system started to panic. Why don't we give up on the mission? The original owner's resentment level is too high. Killing Zhou Shuming would not lower it. No. Shu Yi rejected it without hesitation. Let's not care about the mission first. I've wasted so many years here. I won't rest until I kill him. But host, say no more. Although I can't do anything about the original owner's resentment level, it's not impossible to kill him. Shu Yi's expression darkened. She suppressed the anger in her heart and calmed down. Yulwan stepped forward and said, Shu Yi, you betrayed your sect and were unfilial. You didn't even let your own father off. You even colluded with fiendish cultivators to attack my Gui sect. It's really infuriating. Now that Tianji has been taken down by Uncle Master Yi Qing, you're alone and without help. Hurry up and surrender. You want to capture me? Shu Yi laughed coldly. She did not look the least bit flustered. Demonic qi surged around her. That depends on whether you have the ability. With that said, she suddenly struck the ground with her palm. Demonic qi surged out of her body and into the ground. In an instant, the entire nameless peak shook again. The ground cracked and black demonic qi flowed through the cracks towards the group. Quick, fly on your swords. Lone Moon reminded them. He picked up 2 bucks zwa and flew up. These were mortals after all. They could not come into direct contact with the demonic qi. The elders hesitated and then understood. One by one, they summoned their dharma artifacts and were about to fly up. Suddenly, black qi flashed under their feet. A black array suddenly appeared. They felt the spirit qi in their bodies disappear. It was as if they had been sucked dry. They did not fly up. Instead, they fell to the ground. It was obvious that Shu Yi had set up a binding array on the ground in advance. It looked like everyone's spirit qi was going to be sucked dry by the array. Even their cultivation levels were starting to become unstable. Yi Qing frowned. He turned the sword in his hand, and a huge wave of sword qi flew towards the ground. It landed on the array with a loud rumble. In an instant, the array formed by the demonic qi was broken. Everyone felt their bodies relax. Humph. Idiot. On the other side, Shu Yi suddenly sneered. She didn't care whether Yi Qing had broken her array or not. She took the opportunity to turn around and fly toward the peak of the mountain. Everyone then realized that she was only trying to divert their attention. They immediately chased after her. She did not take the opportunity to escape from Gui sect. Instead, she flew all the way to the peak and rushed into the courtyard. She grabbed a certain someone by the table and strangled his neck. She warned sternly, "Don't come over. Otherwise I'll kill her." Shui, Zhou Shuming panicked. He did not even care about his injuries. He said angrily and anxiously, "What are you trying to do? Let go of Miss Shun." "Let go." Shui snorted. "Do you think I'm stupid? Would I let go of such a bargaining chip so easily?" Shui, Zhou Shuming took 2 steps forward and said anxiously, "I don't know why you suddenly want to kill me, but Miss Shun is just an ordinary person. Our feud has nothing to do with her." Shui, Yuan said in a low voice, "Don't make the same mistake again. Why implicate an innocent person?" "Innocent person?" Shu Yi's expression darkened. She laughed coldly. If she's just an ordinary person, you won't be so nervous. Don't think I don't know who she is. She's that sword cultivator's master. You want to save her? Sure. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Zhou Shuming maliciously. If you guys kill her now, I might consider it. Everyone looked at each other and turned to look at Zhou Shuming. Zhou Shuming was also stunned. Shu Yi smiled even more smugly. She looked at Chef and said, Supremacy I Ching, you have to think this through. You have the deviant fire, and are not afraid of demonic qi. She might not be. As long as you help me kill Zhou Shuming and destroy Gui Yi sect, I promise I won't touch a hair on your master. I Ching. Lone Moon. MD Zizi. Shening, who was still being strangled, looked at the tense atmosphere around her. She slowly continued to take a bite of her fruit. Speaking of which, should she continue to cooperate? After all, this person looked very happy. Chapter 688. Uncle Master I Ching. Seeing that Shu Yi was trying to sow discord, Yu Luan reminded anxiously, Don't listen to her nonsense. She's doing this on purpose to stir up a fight in the sect. Don't fall for her tricks. So what if she's doing it on purpose? Shu Yi laughed coldly, as if he was not afraid of them knowing. With a turn of his hand, a sharp black blade appeared, and held it against Shen Ying's neck. Do you really want to watch her die in my hands? With that said, the blade in his hand moved closer to Shen Ying's neck. Stop. Two Bucks was face paled. He said hurriedly, Don't hurt Miss Shen. Don't you want to kill me? Just do it. Why implicate the innocent? Yu Luan looked at him in surprise. But Two Bucks was stepped forward and continued, Let me exchange with Miss Shen. I will definitely not resist. Disciple nephew Zhua. Not only Yu Luan, the other nascent soul-perfected ones could not help but speak up. Their expressions conflicted. What I want is not just your life alone. Shu Yi ignored his suggestion. Her cold gaze swept across the crowd, her expression becoming increasingly sinister. What I want is the life of everyone in Gui Yi sect. Yu Luan's expression changed, but he could not think of a way to save her. He could only ask the person beside him. Uncle Master I Ching? That was his master after all. When they turned to look, they realized that compared to how anxious they were, I Ching and Lone Moon seemed a little too calm. Perhaps they were hiding it too well. There was not a hint of nervousness on their faces. He was just about to speak when Shu Yi could not wait any longer. She threatened again. If you don't do it, I'll kill her immediately. Hee. Lone Moon then replied calmly, There's no need to wait. Go ahead and kill her. Try killing her? Ha. Zhou Shuming. Yu Luan. Everyone. What happened to their good relationship? This was different from what they imagined. Even Shu Yi was stunned. After a while, she became even more furious, glaring at the two of them. Do you think I don't dare? Once he finished speaking, he tightened his grip on the knife in his hand. The sharp black blade instantly pressed into Shen Ying's neck. It looked like it was about to draw blood. Zhou Shuming. No. Everyone. No. Everyone's faces turned even paler as they cried out in alarm. Shening stopped chewing on her fruit. She looked at the sharp blade in front of her and rolled her eyes. Yes, it was necessary to cooperate with such a tense atmosphere. Thus, he opened his mouth and said one word at a time emotionlessly, as if he was reciting from a book. Ah, it's so scary, help. The corner of Loman's mouth twitched. The spirit chi he was about to release dissipated completely. Ayaya, Father Nyo, I'm so scared. Prepare a ransom of tens of millions to save me. Lomoon. F** King retard. I Ching. Should he help or not? This question is so difficult. I don't know how to answer it. Father Nyo. Shut up. Do you think I'm blind? The blade on your neck is already bent, okay? Can't you be a little more sincere when you're asking for help? Can't you be a little more nervous and emotional? Do you think I'm chanting? Also, don't even think about increasing your allowance. This. Yu Luan looked back and forth at the few of them. He felt that something was wrong. Fellow Taoist Lone Moon I Ching. Sect Master. Lone Moon frowned. He took a step forward and said, I think you should return to the sect and look after Tianji. There are many fiendish cultivators there, in case anything happens. Ah, ah. Yulwan was stunned. He glanced at Shu Yi and then at I Ching, who had been silent all this while. But this, was he just going to ignore it? Don't worry, it's fine. After all, he looked up at the sky and deliberately raised his voice. It's going to be lunchtime soon. Lunch. Shuning, who was addicted to acting, was indeed stunned. Her expression turned serious. She changed her emotionless tone and called out seriously, "Chef." "Yes, master." I Ching nodded. Without the slightest scruple about the situation in front of him, he turned around and plunged into the kitchen without hesitation. In the blink of an eye, there was the sound of chopping vegetables. Shuning did not forget to turn around and add another sentence. "Make a fish for lunch. I want it braised." "Yes, master, no problem, master." Zhuo Shuming, Shu Yi, everyone. What was going on? Weren't they going to rescue the hostages first? Why did they suddenly start cooking? Are you guys messing with me? Shu Yi was so angry that her face began to contort. Demonic chi surged out of her body again. She directly grabbed at Zhuo Shuming's direction. Instantly, a wave of demonic chi attacked him. It looked like it was going to entangle him. Lonmun's expression darkened. He activated a bit of god power and waved his sword. Instantly, a wave of sword chi directly slashed towards the demonic chi. With a swoosh, that black demonic chi instantly disappeared completely. The remaining force of the sword chi even counterattacked the other party. Shui was caught off guard and was injured by the huge sword chi. She grabbed Shenning and retreated a few steps before she could barely stand. She looked at Lone Moon in disbelief. You're also at the soul formation stage." Lone Moon frowned. He could not be bothered to pretend anymore. He directly activated his cultivation to the soul formation stage. In an instant, the suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator pressed down on the other party. Zhuo Shuming and Yulwan's companions were stunned. They all turned to look at Lone Moon. Brother Lone Moon." Zhuo Shuming was stunned. After a while he reacted. No wonder whether it was Qi Refinement Foundation establishment, or even after he formed his core. Every time he practiced with the sword, he could not last more than 2 moves against him. So he was a soul formation supremacy from the start. Yulwan also reacted. No wonder Uncle Master Tian, he was so interested in a foundation establishment disciple. Could it be that he already knew Lonemun's identity? "You've actually been hiding your cultivation all along. Despicable indeed." Shui glared at Lone Moon. Her gaze was full of hatred. So he had been hiding by Zhuo Shuming's side all along. No wonder her plans always failed. The more she thought about it, the more hatred she felt. As if she thought of something, a red light flashed in her eyes. The demonic chi on her body became thicker. She glanced at Shening, who was chewing on her fruit again. She laughed mockingly. "Indeed, you're just a mortal. You're useless. But even if I Ching doesn't make a move, I can still destroy your Gui sect." Yulwan could hear the meaning in her words. His heart tightened. "What do you mean?" Shui smiled even more happily. "Do you think I've done nothing apart from allying with the demon sect all these years in Heavenly Fiend sect?" Zhuo Shuming paled. "What else do you want to do?" The demonic chi on Shu Yi's body suddenly started to increase. Her entire body was enveloped by demonic chi. Even the sky darkened. In an instant, the wind blew and the clouds moved. The ground shook. The spirit herbs on the originally lush ground withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. In an instant, the entire mountain turned yellow. There seemed to be a huge object breaking out of the ground. It brought with it a refreshing chill. It twisted like a living thing. "This is a spirit meridian?" Yulwan looked at the black object in disbelief. But it was clearly demonic chi. Could it be? Demonic source. Lone Moon blurted out. Immortal cultivators had spirit meridians. Fiendish cultivators naturally had demonic sources. Everyone gasped. They suddenly recalled the array that Shu Yi had set up at the foot of the mountain. It looked like a binding array, but the demonic chi was obviously directed towards the ground. So she did not set up the array casually. She took the opportunity to convert the spirit meridian in the mountain into a demonic source. Then she purposely came to the mountain peak to hold Miss Shen hostage. Could it be that she was trying to buy time so that she could convert the demonic source? Shu Yi's eyes turned cold. She said word by word, "I want all of you to die." Chapter 689. As soon as Shu Yi's voice fell, the surrounding devil chi became even more turbulent and spread out layer by layer. In an instant, the surroundings became dark. Not good. The devil chi is about to enter the other peaks. A nascent soul elder cried out in alarm. He pointed at the surrounding devil chi and said anxiously. Everyone's expression changed as they realized that the demonic chi around them was getting thicker and thicker. It looked like the demonic chi was about to seep out of the nameless peak and head towards the other peaks. They were able to stand in the demonic chi because of Lonmun's array formation. If the demonic chi were to spread, the disciples of the sect would probably supremacy. Lonmun? Yuan could only look towards Lonmun for help. Don't leave the formation. At the same time, he conjured a seal with both hands. In an instant, a white array appeared around Nameless Mountain, sealing the demonic chi within the mountain tightly. Before everyone could heave a sigh of relief, Shu Yi sneered. Unnecessary. She did not seem to care about the obstruction at all, and directly called out to the system in her mind. 001. Hurry up and fix the heavenly demon formation now. Host, do you really want to complete this array now? Nonsense. Shu Yi snorted coldly. If you don't summon the demons, how are you going to kill Zhou Shuming and this group of people from Guiyi sect? Didn't I go to the heavenly demon sect to get this magic tool? But directly connecting to the demon realm is forbidden by the rules. It will be discovered by the heavenly law of this world. Don't you have a way to temporarily block the detection of the heavenly Tao? She still stubbornly said. Let it not find out first. By the time it finds out, we will have already left this world. Host, this function can only be used for a short period of time, and all your points will be cleared. Fine. Shu Yi gritted her teeth and urged. No matter what, I must kill them today. Ding. Repair complete. Shu Yi then took out an item and tossed it into the air. In the next moment, a huge array suddenly appeared above them. It shone with a strange red light, as if something was about to break out of the array. What is this? Yuan's eyes widened. It was an array that he had never seen before. However, there was a sinister aura that made people feel uncomfortable. Just a glance at it was enough to cause his mind to become unsteady and his blood to surge. Lonmun took a closer look at the array, and his eyes flashed with shock. It really was a heavenly demon formation. There was actually someone in the lower realm who knew how to set up this formation. Wasn't this something that only demons with sky demon cultivation could set up? Wasn't this? He took a closer look and found that there seemed to be something extra in the formation. It was not an ordinary heavenly demon formation. You think you can really seal my demonic chi? Shu Yi looked at everyone with a confident expression. Her eyes, which were originally filled with murderous intent, became even colder. She laughed loudly and said, I'm not the only one you have to deal with. What do you mean by that? Yuan's heart sank. He was even more wary of the formation in the sky. Shu Yi sneered. Do you know why the heavenly demon sect is called this? That's because they've produced devils who have truly ascended to immortality. This formation is the most precious treasure of the heavenly devil sect that has been lost for a long time. It can connect directly to the devil world and summon the ancient devils to the world. What? Everyone's faces paled. Summoning the ancient devil race? Was Shu Yi crazy? This would destroy the entire mortal world. Shu Yi smiled even more proudly and said word by word. None of you can escape. The moment she finished, the array in the sky shone with a blinding red light. Countless talismans started to move, as if they were going to come to life in the next second. Indeed, after a while there was a loud bang. A huge black stone door appeared above the red array. The heavy black color seemed to be devouring all the light around it. This is... Zhou Shuming's eyes widened in disbelief. He had only taken one look at the huge door that had suddenly appeared in midair. For a moment, he felt a chill spreading throughout his body. All the meridians in his body seemed to be freezing inch by inch. His cultivation was unstable, and even his golden core looked like it was about to shatter. What are you looking at? Lonmun reached out and grabbed Zhou Shuming. He threw him into the array. He conjured a seal with one hand and added a few more layers of protection to block the suppressive force outside. Supremacy, Lone Moon. What is that? Yulwan and the others were shocked. Lone Moon's expression darkened. Then he replied, demonic sect. But why did they appear here? Before everyone could be shocked, they heard a creak. The door suddenly opened. At the same time, demonic chi that was 100 times thicker than Shu Yi's surged out. The suppressive force covered the sky. It was as if the entire mountain top was going to be crushed. After so many years, there's still someone who can summon me? A cold male voice sounded. A figure appeared in front of the demon door. He was dressed in a black robe. Demonic chi surrounded him. There was also a thick smell of blood. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. They immediately understood that this was a real devil. Lone Moon also frowned. A sky fiend actually appeared. The sky demon raised his hand, and the Dharma artifact that Shu Yi had just thrown out flew into his palm. He looked down and seemed to confirm something. It's indeed the sky fiend seal that I left behind. I didn't think that a cultivator from the lower realm could summon this seal. A hint of joy flashed in his eyes, but his gaze was still cold. He looked down and said, "Who was the one who repaired this Skyfiend seal? I can promise her one thing." "It's me." Shu Yi's face lit up. The ancient books of the Skyfiend sect were right. This array could allow the Skyfiend to descend. She did not expect that there would be a surprise. He could promise her one thing. So she answered loudly without thinking. "Supremacy. I was the one who repaired this array. Please help me get rid of Gui sect." "Oh." The Skyfiend's eyes darkened. He turned to look in Shu Yi's direction. In a flash, he landed in front of the demon door and walked toward her. With every step he took, the demonic chi on his body increased. The demonic chi on Shu Yi's body retreated a little. It was as if she was threatened. The Skyfiend's eyes lit up. As he walked, he said, "You want me to kill these mortals?" "Yes." Shu Yi nodded heavily. Her body, which was originally shrouded in demonic chi, was slowly revealed. The Skyfiend laughed softly. His eyes were full of murderous intent. "Good. Then this noble one will do as you say." He suddenly paused halfway through his words. His eyes, which were originally filled with mischief, suddenly widened to the size of copper bells. As if he had seen something shocking. He stared straight at Shu Yi's direction, and the words that were about to come out of his mouth suddenly turned into a string of sounds. So. After a long while, he still couldn't say the last word. His entire body even began to tremble like a sieve. Supremacy. Shu Yi was stunned. In the next moment, the Skyfiend shook violently, as if he had been awakened. Then his legs turned to jelly. Without hesitation, he knelt down in front of Shu Yi, who was grabbing Shining. There was a loud thud. The entire demon city was almost pressed against the ground. It was a perfect demonstration of what it meant to be prostrated on all fours. This little demon greets exalted goddess. Shu Yi. Shining. Everyone. What the hell? For all. Chapter 690. Who are you? Shining took a bite of her fruit, and had no choice but to answer. Exalted goddess, I'm Little San. The Skyfiend looked up and pointed to his face. The Little San in King Little Black's house? What Little San? Did you Hong know? The Skyfiend added. Skyfiend number 3 Little San. Is that the name that Exalted Goddess gave me? Lone Moon. Shining. You should have said you were one of the 10 Skyfiends. Lone Moon turned and glared at a certain someone. Who asked you to give me random nicknames? Exalted Goddess. Shu Yi had a bad feeling about this. He could not help but look at the obedient Skyfiend with some panic. Didn't you promise to help me destroy the entire Gui sect? Don't talk nonsense. The Skyfiend knelt down, as if he was about to explode. He was going to die. What nonsense was he spouting in front of the Exalted Goddess? What entire sect? Who wants to destroy what entire sect? Don't frame a demon. I'm a good demon. Ever since the immortal and demon realms merged, I've been responding to the Exalted Goddess's call. We've been harmonious, friendly, civilized, helping each other. I haven't done anything bad. I even went to the invincible heavenly palace yesterday and followed my king to escort immortal pills to various continents. I've been on duty once a month. I haven't slacked off at all. But, Shui looked confused. He blurted out, "It's the Skyfiend seal that I restored. What's wrong with that? Who told you to do it?" The Skyfiend did not dare to admit it. He hurriedly explained, "We didn't give you immortal stones. You did it out of boredom. It's my fault. I'm not even close to you. Don't try to scam me, I'm telling you." Shui was completely stunned. Was this really a Skyfiend? The little San kowtowed to Shening once more. He said word by word, "Exalted goddess. Exalted goddess, believe me. I may look evil, but I'm innocent." He thought for a moment and added, "It's all the fault of the other Skyfiends from the demon palace. The demon sects suddenly appeared. They cheated and caused me to lose. That's why they pushed me down. I really didn't want this." He cried louder and louder. The louder he got, the more aggrieved he felt. He was just short of tears and snot. "Exalted goddess, this really has nothing to do with me. Back when the immortal and demonic realms merged into one, we have thoroughly investigated all the remaining demonic sects in the world and recovered all of them. Because this heavenly demon seal was damaged, it could not be touched at all, and no one in the lower realm could repair it. It was Demon King Little Black who said that there was no need to care about this, so he didn't go down to the lower realm to retrieve it. In the end, exalted goddess, Little Black Demon King made me do it. He was an innocent demon. Shening, Lone Moon, everyone. If this demon was afraid, would it even betray its superior? On the other side, a series of electronic voice transmissions sounded in Shu Yi's ears, as if it was the final verdict. Ding! Original owner's resentment +5. Ding! The resentment value had reached 100. Mission failed. Ding! The heavenly axiom has detected this and is preparing to forcibly break away from this world. Host, please be prepared. 1098. A strong sense of indignation flashed across Shu Yi's eyes. There was no time to sort out the current situation. She could only glare at Zhuo Shuming, full of murderous intent. In the next moment, she felt her vision go black, and she lost consciousness. And in the eyes of Lone Moon and the others, they saw a flash of green characters that looked like codes on Shu Yi's soul. The invader's black primary soul, that was stuck in Shu Yi's body like a sandwich, was forcibly extracted from her soul, and then flew towards the demonic gate in the sky. Shu Yi's body fell to the ground without warning, but the original primary soul in her body did not return. Seeing that the system was about to escape, Lone Moon hurriedly called out to remind Chef I Ching, who was originally still in the kitchen, instantly appeared in the sky above the demonic gate. With a wave of his hand, the demonic gate closed directly, disappearing along with the passageway that connected to the demonic realm. Then, he summoned a sword array to trap the object that seemed to be made up of codes. As if knowing that it could no longer enter the demonic gate, the system suddenly glowed with green light. Nobody knew what it did, but it actually penetrated through Chef's sword array and rushed towards the ground. Lone Moon was shocked and immediately reacted. It wants to enter the river of forgetfulness. He turned to stop it, but Shening, who was originally still opposite him, suddenly reached out and pulled him. "What?" Lone Moon panicked. "Wait," Shening replied, not at all anxious. Anyway, she continued to leisurely take a bite of her fruit. "Wait for what?" "It wants to escape through the river of forgetfulness." The system wanted to enter the demonic gate and return to the immortal realm through it. It did not know that the gap had been sealed, so it wanted to escape through the original path outside the invincible heavenly palace. Chef sealed the demonic gate, so it wanted to directly punch a hole through the river of forgetfulness in the lower realm. Shit, it's already in. The moment Lone Moon stopped, the system had already rushed underground, straight into the river of forgetfulness. Lone Moon's heart tightened. It wants to escape. He paused mid-sentence, only to realize that the system that had rushed into the river of forgetfulness, which was originally covered in green light, suddenly dimmed under the golden power of the original source. The entire green ball of light began to tremble, as if it was about to collapse. It looked like it was about to disintegrate. In the center of the green light, a wisp of white soul floated out slowly. One could vaguely make out the shadow of Shu-yi. This was the original soul of the original owner of the body that was extracted by the system, the real Shu-yi. It was finally separated. The invader did not complete the original source of her heart, so she naturally did not want to leave with the system. In addition, under the scouring of the original source of the river of forgetfulness, the system naturally could not lock this wisp of soul. This all happened very quickly. In the blink of an eye, the original owner's soul had already returned to the river of forgetfulness. But the system did not stop. After spitting out the original soul, it forcefully tore a plain opening from the river of forgetfulness with the black soul of the invader. It's done. Shining threw the fruit in her hand, her figure flashed, and then she jumped towards the river of forgetfulness. Lone Moon looked up at Chef in the air, and hurriedly followed. In a flash, the three of them disappeared on the spot. The people who could not see the system at all, and could not see the river of forgetfulness, as well as a certain demon. What was going on? What exactly happened just now? Why did Shui suddenly stop breathing and collapse? Moreover, how did those three people disappear? Everyone could only turn to look at Zhou Shuming, the only person who was usually close to them. I don't know either. Zhou Shuming looked confused. Were all soul formation supremacies so mysterious? Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Then, they saw a certain demon kneeling obediently on the ground with a pure and kind look on his face. Speaking of which, this was definitely a fake sky fiend, right? For some reason, Yulwan's originally full of fear had now disappeared completely. He mustered up his courage and could not help but say, this. Fellow Taoist, I don't know when the three supremacies will return. Why don't you follow me to the main hall for a cup of tea? After all, he did not seem to have the intention to fight. Peace was the most important. No. Little Three hurriedly shook his head like a rattle drum, and said with a determined expression, Exalted Goddess hasn't told me to get up yet? How can I get up by myself? I'm a sensible demon. Don't you think of lying to me? The corner of Yulwan's mouth twitched, so he changed his words. Why don't I send you the tea? You can kneel and drink it, right? All right. Little Three then nodded. Remember to put more tea leaves. Refreshing. He could kneel for another 500 years. Yulwan. Zhou Shuming. Everyone. MDZZ. Chapter 691. The moment Shen Ying and company entered the river of forgetfulness, they saw that a white crack had appeared around the system in front of them. It looked like it was about to tear the plane apart. Chef's heart stirred. Immediately, the power of the original source in the surroundings gathered towards the system, blocking its path. I Ching waved his hand. Huge amounts of nomological power surged towards the system, wrapping around it. It grew tighter and tighter. It looked like it was about to be controlled. The green code around the system started to twist. Even its light dimmed. It seemed to be unstable. A much weaker electronic voice rang out again. Beep beep. Special situation. Identity exposed. Attacked by Heavenly Tao. Attacked. Beep beep. Activating final self-protection level. Devouring backup energy. Activating devouring charging. Ah! A scream rang out from the system. The black primary soul, that was originally wrapped up by the system's green light, started to struggle violently. 001. What are you doing? It hurts. Let go of me. Let go. Before Shu-yi could finish his sentence, the entire black soul body had already disappeared. Meanwhile, the system emitted an even brighter green light than before, as though it had mobilized all of its energy. In an instant, it broke through the suppression of the power of the natural order, and with a cautious sound, it opened up a gap above the river of forgetfulness and drilled out. Chef, what are you doing? Lone Moon turned to look at I Ching in shock. You can't even stop this? I Ching frowned. He did not reply. Instead, he turned to look at Shen Ying confused. Master, why did you? Although the system had devoured a different soul, and its power had increased by 10 times, It was indeed nothing in front of him. Shining had suddenly pulled him back. Shining responded. Without explaining, she took out a familiar-looking blue box and patted it. It was the parenting system from before. Hey, stop playing landlord for a while. Point me the way. All right, big boss. The blue box flew up. The parenting system, which had been displaying a row of poker cards, retracted its cards. The little box turned back into a pair of familiar cartoon eyes. Signal source confirmed. The target is escaping to the chaotic region of SBSBSB 155. 23. Shining then grabbed the parenting system back in her hands. She waved her hand and opened the plane gate. Turning back to look at the two, she said, "Let's go. We're going to its nest." The two of them. They looked at each other. Winky face. Only then did he remember that 001 seemed to be just a subsystem. He didn't know what was behind it. Was Shining planning to catch them all at once? But since when did the parenting system become so powerful? Even after 001 escaped from the realm, it was still able to track him down. It was completely different from the previous system that would freeze every time it tried to attack. Shining, however, had already turned and walked into the plane passage. The two of them exchanged a look and turned to repair the hole in the river of forgetfulness before following her. Almost in the blink of an eye, their vision turned black, and they immediately entered a space of nothingness. There was nothing around them, even the ground under their feet had disappeared. This is chaos. Lone Moon was stunned. This was the first time he had come to the legendary chaos space. In the past, even when he left his own plane, he only traveled between planes. The chaos was a primordial region outside of all the planes. It was boundless, and no one knew how big it was. There was nothing in it. It didn't even have the concept of time and space. It was a completely different place from the void. Lone Moon subconsciously looked at his own palms. Was he imagining things? Logically speaking, their powers came from their own plane. Why did it feel like they were stronger now that they were in the chaos space? Before he could think about it, the parenting system suddenly flashed and gave a warning. Reporting Big Boss. There are traces of intruders 500 meters ahead. They focused and indeed, there was a flash of white light not far away. A familiar green ball of system rushed out of the white light. It seemed to have just broken through the plane and arrived. They didn't expect it to be one step slower than them. I Ching's eyes and hands were sharp. He immediately conjured a seal to hide the figures of the three of them. As soon as the system came out, it flew to the right. The three of them exchanged a look and quietly followed it. The parenting system flew in front of them, very obsequiously guiding them. The bad system ahead has turned right 200 meters away. The bad system ahead has hit a chaos flowstone 300 meters away. Please take care to avoid it. The bad system ahead has increased its speed. Lone Moon. I Ching. Shining. Lone Moon couldn't help but send a voice transmission. Since when did this parenting system have a navigation function? Did you intend to let 001 out of the plane right from the start? No wonder she wasn't anxious at all. That's right. Shining nodded as she dug out the fruit. Once and for all. Otherwise, it will think that we're in a rabbit's nest. It dug holes everywhere. She might as well get rid of it all at once. Then this. Lone Moon wanted to ask in detail. It's gone. I Ching suddenly stopped and looked in front of him, a little confused. Lone Moon paused and looked up. Indeed, the 001 system that was flying in front of them just now had disappeared. There was only darkness around them. What's going on? Why did it suddenly disappear? They were following closely. They were less than 500 meters away. They shouldn't have lost it. I don't know either. It suddenly disappeared. Chef shook his head. Even the parenting system let out a series of anxious noises. Big Boss, the target has disappeared. The target has disappeared. It didn't disappear. Shining replied. She frowned and took a step forward. She raised her right hand and touched something in front of her. It was as if she touched something. The originally black space suddenly rippled like the surface of a lake with a stone thrown into it. The scenery in front of him changed. And in an instant, it changed into another scene. The two of them stared at it, and couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. What was this? They saw that behind the ripples, there was a huge object floating in the air. Its entire body was covered in green fluorescent light. There were characters that looked like codes all over its body. Countless long and thin tentacles extended from its body. They extended in all directions. Every tentacle was wriggling. They could faintly see balls of different colored souls gathering in the center through those tentacles. That thing was huge. They couldn't see its exact size. They couldn't tell what it was. It looked like a plain tree, but it didn't have the aura of an original source. From time to time, one or two systems like 001 would stop at the end of those complicated tentacles. They would put the primary souls that they captured into the tentacles, and then leave. There were many of those systems. They were like busy worker bees. And this was the hive. Chapter 692. Reporting Big Boss. Target main system discovered. Lone Moon took a closer look at the huge object in front of him. He could faintly sense that the other party's energy was no weaker than that of a manager's. It was just that it was very messy, not as pure as a manager's. It seemed to be a patchwork of energy, and the strongest energy was at the very center of the nest. There are so many subsystems, what do we do now? Lone Moon suggested subconsciously. Should we find an entrance and sneak in? This main system would have some sort of switch, right? Why sneak in? Shening tilted her head and asked seriously. Nonsense. What do we do if we don't sneak in? The core of the main system was clearly in the innermost part of this thing. Can't we just kill it? Huh? Lone Moon was stunned. Before he could react, he saw Shun Ying's figure flash, instantly appearing beside one of the system's tentacles. She reached out and grabbed that thick tentacle. Wait, what are you doing? Holy shit, you really did it. In an instant, the countless subsystems that were originally busy suddenly stopped in unison, as if someone had pressed the pause button. With a whoosh, they all aimed at him. The originally green subsystems all turned red with a whoosh, as if countless pairs of densely packed red eyes had opened. Indeed, in the next moment, there was a series of beeping alarms. Shening. Lone Moon felt a chill in his heart. Just as he was about to pull her back, he saw her grab the tentacle with one hand and pull hard. There was a loud crack and a blinding flash of light. That huge tentacle was forcibly pulled down by her. The entire huge main system began to writhe, waving countless other tentacles and attacking them. Even the subsystems that were like worker bees also gathered in this direction, densely packed and overwhelming. Shening, however, still looked half dead and half alive. She directly grabbed the tentacle in her hand, like a whip, turned around and waved her hand at the impenetrable subsystem. A series of rumbling explosions could be heard. There was a burst of colorful light in front of them. Large patches of tentacles and subsystems exploded, scattering in all directions. But the tentacle whip in Xin Ying's hand did not stop. Instead, it followed the momentum and directly swung towards the main body of the main system behind her. Then there was a loud bang. The gigantic object, which could not be seen clearly at first glance, was instantly pushed back. Then, with a few cracking sounds, a huge crack appeared on the body of the main system. The crack ran through the entire sphere from top to bottom, and a large number of foreign incomplete souls that had not yet turned into origin swarmed out from within and fled in all directions. He could even faintly see the shining core in the innermost area. All right, there's no need to hide anymore, Shening said. Lone Moon. I Ching. Oh, of asterisk CK. What kind of violent cheat was this? Sure enough, in front of a cheat, all villains were paper tigers. Xin Ying's actions seemed to have broken something. The entire main system began to tremble and emit a series of strange electronic sounds. Even the countless subsystems began to flee in all directions. Lone Moon's heart sank. Only then did he react. He turned to I Ching and said, Chef, stop these systems. They must not be allowed to invade other planes. Otherwise there would be endless trouble. I Ching also reacted immediately. In a flash, he retreated to the side. In the next moment, a fiery wall of fire appeared in an instant, heading in the direction of the escaping subsystems. There was a series of crackling sounds, and all the systems that crashed into the wall of fire were turned into ashes. The wall of fire grew taller and taller. In a moment, it had become a sea of fire. Because this area was really too wide, in order to block off all the exits, even Chef had no choice but to transform into his original phoenix form, turning into a huge fire phoenix, controlling the true phoenix fire to form circles of fire walls, wrapping up the entire main system and the surroundings. Lone Moon also conjured an immortal sword. He waved his sword, and tens of them began to destroy the countless subsystems inside. Shining, on the other hand, did not move. She looked up at the crack on the main system, and then looked at the chaotic mess of subsystems flying everywhere. Her eyes narrowed, and she pointed at the parenting system that was still floating beside her. Baby system. Yes, boss, please instruct me. Scan the energy levels of all the system terminals here. Yes, boss. No problem, boss. Scanning terminal. Discovered terminal plus 5 billion. Energy level is B, detected abnormal energy. The energy level is over SSS. Reporting to boss, there's a problem. Mark it out. Yes, boss. The parenting system made a beeping sound. A thin white line suddenly shot out from the blue square, pointing to a dark area in front of them on the right. There was a small green ball that looked similar to the other subsystems. In the next moment, a red arrow appeared on top of the system's head. Lone Moon, who was dealing with the system worker bees, immediately noticed the situation over there. He paused. What's this? The main body, Shining replied. The main systems. What? Lone Moon was stunned. He looked at the huge body in the middle, and then at the marked system. Suddenly he understood. It can move into these subsystems at will. Shining nodded. Holy shit. He cursed and spun the sword in his hand. Then he turned around and flew towards the marked system. The system did not have a physical body. It could only be bound to a soul. He should have known that the so-called main system did not have a physical body. That was why it could move between any of the subsystems. No wonder Shen-Ing attacked it without saying a word. If they had really sneaked in, it might have moved before they could catch the main system. They had to get rid of all the systems from the start. So they might as well poke the hornet's nest and trap all the systems first. What's more, the main system's energy was quite shocking. It was no less than that of an ordinary manager. But after Shen-Ing hit it, it seemed to have collapsed. Even the subsystems began to flee in all directions. Now that he thought about it, the main system might have done it on purpose. It knew that it could not defeat Shen-Ing, so it created chaos and wanted to escape. Indeed, just as Lone Moon flew towards the marked system, the surrounding subsystems that were fleeing in all directions suddenly seemed to have received some order. They swarmed towards him, forming a green wall. It was as if they wanted to stop him from advancing. Lone Moon summoned his sword array. Thousands of immortal swords broke through the system's green wall. His body flashed towards the main system, and he slashed at the marked system. But before he could heave a sigh of relief, more subsystems appeared around him. Ding! The target has changed again. The parenting system's mark dimmed. It instantly appeared on top of another green ball a few feet away. It changed again. Good job, parenting system. Lone Moon was overjoyed. He had the urge to give it his salary. He turned and flew towards it. Chapter 693. With the parenting system's godly assistance, no matter how the main system moved, there would always be a mark above its head. What's more, Chef's wall of fire was getting tighter and tighter, and Lone Moon had set up several sword arrays inside. The hundreds of millions of subsystems around them were getting fewer and fewer. There were only a few left. The main system seemed to have sensed this. The mark above its head dimmed and disappeared. In the next moment, the huge body in the center with countless tentacles started to move again. Ding! Reporting to Big Boss, the target has returned to the initial terminal. The main system, which was as huge as a plane tree, suddenly emitted beams of piercing green light from its body. Like lasers, it swept toward the few of them. Everywhere it passed, even chaos was broken. There was even the chi of the source. It wants to use the original source it collected to attack us. Lone Moon was shocked. He turned toward I Ching, who was still controlling the wall of fire. Chef quickly dodged these. No need. Shining suddenly spoke. With that, her figure flashed and she appeared right in front of those beams of light. Just as all the beams were about to hit her body, Shining raised her hand to block them. However, she merely raised her hand to block the attack. In an instant, the countless rays of green light bounced back as if they had hit a mirror. Then, with a few sizzling sounds, the smell of something burning wafted into the air. With a loud rumble, the main system, which already had a crack in it, broke into pieces. Its huge body was cut by its own green light, and countless cracks appeared, as if it was cracking. We can sneak in now. Shining pointed at the biggest crack and said seriously, Lone Moon, I Ching, you're awesome. Fu *K, is this called sneaking in? This is freaking ripping. And it's the kind of ripping in the open and extremely arrogant way. Shining, however, stepped forward and jumped into the center of the crack. Lone Moon and I Ching exchanged a look and hurriedly followed. The moment they entered the crack, the scenery around them changed. All the darkness retreated, and a snow-white land appeared in front of them. It was white and empty. They could faintly feel a thick source of original source energy in front of them. Sure enough, in the next moment, a figure slowly appeared in front of him, slowly condensing into a human shadow. That person was floating in the air. He was dressed in black, and his eyes were cold. He looked at the three of them with an expressionless face. He did not speak, but a stiff voice rang out. Invaders from a low-level existential plane. How dare you provoke a chief god? You will pay the price of your souls. Intruder? Lone Moon looked at the person in the sky amused. Aren't you the one who invades other planes everywhere? The person on the other side frowned, as if he was very angry. That stiff voice sounded again, but he ignored Lone Moon's sarcasm. You have already entered my chief god space. No one can resist me. Sovereign space. Lone Moon was stunned. Could it be that it had intentionally lured them in? He subconsciously sensed his own plane, only to find that the plane that could be contacted at any time was now completely cut off. He was shocked, but before he could think, a series of electronic sounds rang out from the other side. Activation of original source energy successful. Preparing for soul extraction, extraction commencing. In the next moment, he felt a strong gust of wind sweep past, followed by a loud crashing sound. A huge amount of energy was pressing down on them. Lone Moon's heart sank, and he subconsciously tightened his grip on the sword in his hand. He felt that the energy was getting closer, closer and closer. Then it swept past them. Straight Face, Lone Moon, Chef, and the parenting system floating in front of Shining were all standing where they were, perfectly fine. They did not feel any pressure at all, much less that their souls were being extracted. The three of them. What a frightening soul extraction, / extraction failed. Increase energy by 70%. Extraction commencing. With a crashing sound, another wave of energy pressed down on them, and then it swept past them again. The three of them did not move. Extraction failed. Increase energy by 90%. Extraction commencing. Another wave of energy pressed down on them, and then it swept past them again and again. The three of them were as still as dead dogs. Extraction failed. Increase energy by 100%. Extraction commencing. Are you done? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He could not help but open his mouth to retort. Brag, brag, brag. What are you bragging about? Do you think you're an electric fan? He was wrong to think that this main system was so powerful. Yet he forgot that it was not even a manager. It was just a fake manager that stole some original source energy from different planes, and then patched it up. With so much energy from so many different planes, it was already not bad that it could maintain a superficial level of compatibility. It actually wanted to extract the soul of an authentic manager. Of course, that was impossible. They reckoned that this guy probably didn't even know who they were. Unknown life form detected. Impossible to estimate. Impossible to estimate. The main system made a series of crashing sounds, as if the machine was stuck. Unknown life form, that cannot be matched to any plane. What exactly are you? Lone Moon. I Ching. Shining. So it really did not know? Oh, it was no wonder that 001, who invaded them previously, kept saying that it was afraid of being discovered by the heavenly Tao, but never mentioned anything about managers. So it did not know at all? Then what it said about the chief god's space earlier, was it just a bluff? The parenting system was right. This was indeed a low-level system. It deserved to be eliminated. Loman's eyebrows furrowed. He sent a beam of sword chi over. The figure in the air shook like smoke, and then dissipated. A phantom? I Ching frowned. He conjured a wind seal. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind rose. It was much stronger than the 3 soul-sucking winds that the main system created earlier. In the next moment, the white fog in front of them dissipated. The surroundings darkened again. A green light appeared in front of them. Countless green codes surrounded a colorful mixed source. The source energy was very thick, almost as thick as that of an ordinary plane source. It looked like this was the core of the main system. Shen Ying's eyes narrowed. She walked forward directly. Wait! Don't touch the core. The electronic voice sounded again. Compared to the emotionless tone before, this time there was a hint of panic. I can create a physical body soon, and become a powerful eternal life form. Don't destroy my core. Physical body? Lo Moon frowned. Eternal life forms aside, this fellow dug holes in all the planes to steal the source. So it was to obtain a physical body first? He turned to look at the little cube floating beside Shining. Speaking of which, was it that difficult to have a physical body? Winky face, stop. Stop. The main system was getting more and more panicked. Shining walked closer and closer. Just as she was about to reach out and grab the source, she suddenly felt a weight on her hand. Someone grabbed her wrist. An unfamiliar male voice sounded beside her. Don't you think it's a pity to destroy such an interesting thing? Chapter 694. Master. I Ching's heart sank, and he flew over directly. Lo Moon was shocked too. Who are you? The man appeared too suddenly. They actually did not notice that there was someone else here, even Shining. The man turned back to look at the two. A cold look flashed in his eyes. The friendly and teasing expression, just now suddenly became unapproachable. You still have 2 burdens with you, he said with a half-smile. Suddenly his eyes darkened, and something seemed to be released from his body in the direction of the 2. You're in the way. Shen Ying's eyes narrowed, her figure flashed, and she instantly retreated to I Ching and Lonman's side. The 2 of them had no time to react at all. They only felt that an invisible defense had been set up around them in an instant, and a few strange sounds whizzed past their ears. It was as if something terrifying had almost hit them, but Shening had blocked it at the last moment. The 2's expression changed instantly. This completely defenseless, completely unfelt power. This was the first time they felt this from someone other than Shening. If Shening did not return just now, perhaps the 2 of them would already be here. A sense of danger that they had never felt before immediately surged in their hearts. This man. Who exactly was he? Master. I Ching's heart sank even more, subconsciously looking at Shening, who was blocking in front of him. Before he had time to ask, Shening suddenly turned around, reached out and pushed his chest. Go back. I Ching was caught off guard and was pushed back by her. Along with Lone Moon, they fell to the ground. Instantly, a white light flashed in front of them, as if something opened instantly. It looked very familiar. This was the white light of the plane door. Master! Foodie! The 2 subconsciously exclaimed, but fell directly into the plane door that suddenly opened behind them, disappearing on the spot, only in time to see Shen Ying's face, a never-before-seen serious expression. In the next instant, the 2 were already sitting on the grass in the divine realm. Chef panicked, immediately climbed up, raised his hand, wanting to open the plane door again. But no matter how he conjured a seal, there was no reaction at all. Lone Moon hurriedly tried as well. It was the same situation. He turned to look at Chef, who was already frantic. It's no use. Shening should have already sealed all the plane passages. We can't go back. Master. I Ching's expression turned even uglier. He thought of the man who had suddenly appeared, and the attack that he could not detect at all. No. She's in danger. We have to hurry back. Chef, calm down. Lone Moon held him back. Shenning didn't even inform us and sent us back so suddenly. She must have known from the start that it wasn't something we could handle. We wouldn't be able to help at all, and might even implicate her. I Ching heaved a sigh of relief and calmed down. However, he looked even more flustered now. He clenched his fists tightly. But Master is alone. If we don't help her, who else can? Senior Jing. His eyes lit up, and he turned to Lone Moon. Fine, Senior Jing. That person isn't simple. He's definitely not an ordinary manager. Senior Jing must know something. Lone Moon paused and then reacted. That's right. There's still Sister Jing. He hurriedly opened his wristband and connected to Shen Jing's communication device. After a while, his body stiffened and the light in his eyes dimmed. He said with some disbelief, Shening, she even blocked Sister Jing's communication device. Both of their faces turned pale. Shening blocked the plane because she knew that they were no match for that person. Then she blocked Sister Jing's communication device because even Shen Jing couldn't handle that person. At this time in the chaos. A wise choice. The man looked at the place where Lone Moon and I Ching disappeared and raised his eyebrows at Shening. He returned to his slightly friendly and smiling expression. Given your status, it's most unsuitable for you to bring along these two burdens. Yet you keep bringing them along everywhere. Shen Ying's eyes narrowed, and then swept a glance at the man. After a while, she slowly took out a fruit and took a bite. She replied, Are you jealous? What? The man was stunned, as if he did not expect her to reply this way. Shening tilted her head, and then continued. I've seen many single dogs like you. I understand. What do you understand? What's with this feeling of being looked down upon? The man's mouth twitched and he sighed deeply. Then he shook his head and said, There's no point in talking about these things. Interesting. Shening still nodded seriously. After all, a single stray dog like you is fundamentally different from people like us who travel in luxurious groups. I can understand if you feel unbalanced. Understand my foot. What was with this urge to strangle the other party? He did not find out that she was such a person in his previous investigations. The man pressed his forehead and finally regained his senses. Do you know who I am exactly? Shening paused in the act of chewing on the fruit. After a while, she took another bite and said, I'm the person who blocked the monitoring of the Heavenly Tao organization and let Mu Xiang return to her original plane. I'm also the person who specially let this system invade Chef's plane. Oh. The man's eyes narrowed, and he looked at her with some surprise. So you already knew. It seems that you do have some skills. It's not that I have good eyesight, it's that you're too obvious. Shening glanced at him and added, I'm not blind. Ha ha ha. The man was not angry. He continued to smile and asked, Then do you know why I did all this? Shening stared at the fruit in her hand and turned it to a side that was easier to eat. She slowly took a bite and then replied, You're so bored. The man's smile froze again. The corner of his mouth twitched. He could no longer pretend to be kind. His expression turned cold, and he said seriously and sternly, That was my test for you. I wanted to see if you had the qualifications to take over my position. Oh. Shening looked disinterested, as if she had no interest in his words at all. She threw away the core of the fruit in her hand and looked up at the main system that was pretending to be dead and moving backwards, trying to escape. She lifted her chin and said, You want to stand up for it? Huh. The man paused and subconsciously looked at the main system. He shook his head and said, Don't misunderstand. I don't like this plain locust. Of course I won't help it. It's just that. Oh, that's good. Shening interrupted him and turned to continue walking towards the trembling main system. The man. Was she so impatient to deal with him? Chapter 695. The main system on the other side panicked and made a series of beeping sounds. Don't come over. The green code around the colorful original source started to flash crazily. It tried to stop Shening from coming closer, but it was completely useless. Shening walked over unimpeded. She reached out and grabbed the huge ball of mixed original source inside. You'd better think carefully. The man spoke again. as if he couldn't help but remind her anxiously. This thing has the ability to enter any plane at will. Although it's rubbish, it has many eyes and ears. To me, or to you in the future, it will indeed be of some use. If you destroy it now, you won't have it in the future. Shening turned to look at him. Her expression darkened and she replied seriously, "Oh." As soon as she finished speaking, a huge wave of energy enveloped the ball of original source. Shening clenched her fists. With a puff sound, the entire ball of origin seemed to have been crushed, scattering in all directions. The surrounding code clattered, and more than half of the surrounding code dimmed. Without the main system's restraint, the original source that had been forcibly mixed together separated and scattered, disappearing into the chaos. These were all original sources formed from the main soul. As long as the plane was not destroyed, one day it would be attracted back to its original plane by the original source of the plane. The man frowned, as if he was angry that she had destroyed the main system without hesitation. He looked at her with displeasure and said, "You really destroyed it. Actually, as long as you subdue it, you can naturally use it in the future." "No need." Shening waved her hand. "You." The man was speechless. As if thinking of something, he sighed and said, "This thing was carefully chosen by me. It will definitely be of use to you. Do you have any idea who we are?" "Judge." Shening suddenly turned to look at him. The man was stunned. His eyes widened abruptly as he looked at her in shock. "You know." "Yes, I guessed it." She nodded. To be able to make the two monitors not detect an organization like the Big Tao organization for so many years. Only the judge is stronger than the monitors. It was a simple choice. "Oh." The man glanced at her in surprise. "Then how did you know about the existence of the Nephilic judge?" Even the supervisor did not know about the existence of the Nephilic judge, yet she was able to say these 3 words accurately. "You know that." Shening had no intention of hiding anything. She said directly, "I once went into hibernation. At first, I thought it was because I had used too much energy. But when I woke up, I realized that my power had exceeded a certain limit. Even I couldn't feel where the limit of my energy was. From then on, the word trial would often appear in my consciousness. If I'm not mistaken, I should be a judge like you." It's still too early to make a conclusion. The man's expression darkened. He looked straight at her and slowly smiled. Compared to the kindness he had shown before, there was a hint of coldness in his smile. "Do you know that judges can judge anyone in any plane, or even the managers, including monitors? If managers are beings who control the heavenly Tao laws of the plane, then judges are the only ones who control the great Tao laws of the entire chaos." An indecipherable emotion flashed across his eyes. He continued, "There are countless planes in the chaos. Each plane has its own heavenly Tao laws. That's why there are countless managers. But there is only one great Tao law in the chaos. That's why there can only be one judge." Shening frowned. "You are the candidate to take over my position," he said solemnly. "But I don't know if you can be a good judge. So be it the Big Tao organization or this invading system, they are all tests I prepared for you. Only if you pass these tests and meet my requirements, can I rest assured in letting you take over my position. I don't want it." Before he could finish, Shening rejected him. "Huh. Ah." The man paused. What the hell? Was he hearing things just now? She actually gave up so easily? "If you want to keep it, keep it." Shening waved her hand lazily. She continued to eat her fruit as she turned to leave. "If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. I'm still hungry." "Wait." The man finally reacted. In a flash, he stood in front of Shening. "You can't leave." "Why?" Was she not allowed to resign even if she didn't want to be promoted? The man was stunned. His eyes darted around. After a while he said, "Your power has already grown to the level of a judge. But there can only be one judge in the world. So even if you pass my test, there must be a winner between us." "Oh." Shening nodded. She said crisply, "I admit defeat. That should do it, right? Go home, eat. Oh, for all. Oh, you." The man seemed to be angered. He stood in front of her and said, "That's not what I meant when I said winner." "What do you mean then?" His expression darkened. With a heavy tone he said, "Between us, Only one can exist in this world. Shen Ying's hand froze. The man sighed heavily. He smiled kindly again. It's just that our powers are about the same now. If we really fight, the entire plane in the chaos realm will be destroyed. That's why I set up those tests. I want to solve this problem in a more peaceful way. If you pass the test, I will naturally disappear. Shening tilted her head. You mean between the two of us, one has to disappear? That's right. He nodded. If both of us don't disappear, Shening asked seriously, will my food allowance be deducted? Huh. The man paused. He subconsciously replied, it can't be, right? Oh, that's all right. She heaved a sigh of relief. Wait a minute. What has this got to do with food allowance? Why are we suddenly talking about this? You don't understand what I mean. I'm saying that there can only be one judge. Who made that rule? Is it against the law to have two judges? Before he could finish, Shening interrupted him. You've been a judge for a long time, and I've been awake for a long time. In other words, the two of us have existed at the same time. Why can't there be two? The man paused. He could not find any words to refute her. All right, I'm leaving. Shening turned to walk around him. Wait. He stood in front of her again. Unwilling to give up, he said, although I don't know what will happen if two judges exist at the same time. I'm sure it will have a very bad effect. That's why we have to. Then we'll talk about it when it happens. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.